The hour of 12:30 having arrived, the Santa Cruz City Council will come to order. Madam Clerk, would you be kind enough to call the roll?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Triguero.
Present.
Bruner.
Present.
Newsom.
Present.
Holder.
Here.
O'Hara.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kalantari-Johnson.
Here.
Mayor Keeley.
Here. Having established a quorum, let me check in with members to see if you have any statements of disqualification. Seeing and hearing none. Public comment on our closed session agenda. We will be taking up items 1, which has 8 items on it in closed session. Item 2, real property negotiations. Anyone who is with us in chambers wish to make comments on this item? Seeing and hearing none. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone with their hands up?
We do not.
We do not. Right. We will be taking up in closed session 8 items that are claims and 1 item which is a real property negotiation at 1070 River Street. What we will do is we will be going into closed session, taking up those items, coming back, beginning our regular agenda, report out if there are any reportable items. We expect that this should only take 10 or 15 or 20 minutes. So we will be back either at around 1 o'clock or when we finish our closed session work, but certainly no sooner than 12:50. At this point, we will stand adjourned into closed session. Santa Cruz City Council will come back into session and order. We have a quorum established and maintained. We have finished our business in closed session. We are going to receive a report on that in a little bit, but at this point we are going to move to a proclamation declaring June as Elder Abuse Awareness Month. And Whitney Barnes is here, and we appreciate your presence. And what we will do is hear from Councilmember Triguero, and then we would love to hear from you. Councilmember, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas Santa Cruz County, whereas of Santa Cruz County's more than 268,000 residents, 24% currently, roughly 64,000 people are aged 60 or older, representing every racial, ethnic, religious, gender, socioeconomic, and ability demographic in the county. And it's expected that the number of residents over the age of 60 will climb to 30% by 2030. And whereas older adults of all ages, abilities, backgrounds, enrich and strengthen our community by serving as leaders, mentors, volunteers, and vital members of our community, each of whom deserves to be treated with respect and dignity. And whereas over 3,000 reports of elder abuse or neglect are received each year by the County of Santa Cruz Human Services Department, HSD, Adult Protective Services, and elder abuse remains one of the most unrecognized and underreported issues affecting older adults. And whereas recent studies estimate that approximately 1 in 10 people in the United States aged 60 and older have experienced some form of elder abuse, and alarmingly, for every case reported to authorities, as many as 24 may go unreported, highlighting a significant gap in awareness and intervention. And whereas the life expectancy increases amongst our aging population, The dedicated social workers and public health nurses of HSD's programs collaborate with valued partners to plan for improved ways to meet the collective needs of vulnerable seniors and to further develop services to provide the best care and protection to those older adults vulnerable to elder abuse. And whereas collaborative partnerships that help ensure that comprehensive structures are developed so many can retain community and societal connections as they age, resulting in lower rates of abuse and increased social, cultural, and political actions that build real and sustainable change where older adults can live free from abuse, neglect, and exploitation. And whereas Santa Cruz County earned its AARP Age-Friendly Community designation in 2022 through collaborations through local cities, including City of Santa Cruz, law enforcement agencies, the district attorney, the local seniors council, area agency on aging, the long-term care ombudsman program, and the Office of the Public Guardian, and many other community service partners to prevent abuse, protect victims, and prosecute offenders who abuse older adults in our county. Now, therefore, I, Gabriela Triguero, along with the Mayor, Fred Keeley, and council members, do hereby proclaim June 15th, 2026 as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day and the month of June 2026 as Elder Abuse Awareness Month in the city of Santa Cruz. And we encourage all citizens to join us in this observance and helping prevent elder abuse and supporting the well-being of all older adults in our city and in the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Ms. Barnes, good afternoon. Welcome to the council meeting.
Thank you, appreciate that. My name is Whitney Barnes. I'm a social work supervisor with Santa Cruz County Adult Protective Services team. I'd like to thank the City of Santa Cruz for declaring June 2026 as Elder Abuse Awareness Month. This proclamation acknowledges and values the critical role that Adult Protective Services plays in helping to end elder abuse while supporting the well-being of all older and dependent adults in our county. The aging population is growing in demographics as well as their contributions to the community. Older adults in Santa Cruz and throughout our county enrich our communities. They play roles as vital leaders, mentors, volunteers, and neighbors. And I'd like to take this opportunity to remind our community that while elder abuse often goes unnoticed, is significantly underreported, we can all take steps to prevent and stop abuse, neglect, and exploitation of our older adults. Calling and visiting with loved ones, educating yourselves around the signs of elder abuse, and reaching out to APS just to consult are a few ways that anyone can help make our residents safer. Residents of Santa Cruz, friends, family members, community partners, and professionals all can take steps towards ending elder abuse. You're welcome to learn more about how APS serves older adults in the community and see some newly published videos that we just created featuring and starring some recipients of our services, some APS clients, by visiting our website at santacruzhumanservices.org.
Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for the fine work that you and your colleagues do every day. Our partners in county government take the lead on that at Adult Protective Services, and we just cannot thank you enough for looking out for all of our vulnerable seniors, and thank you so very much.
If I may, I'd like to just make a comment and say, I'd like to express my gratitude as well. In my years in education, I've made countless calls to CPS, and I've only made one call to APS, but I was astounded with the level of professionalism and care that the social worker provided and the way that they intervened in that situation. It was no disrespect to CPS. I know they've got a big caseload too, but I just was like, had never done it before, and it just, so I encourage other members of the community, when in doubt, just call. They're so professional, and it was really, I can't express how grateful I am.
I appreciate hearing that, and I'm so proud of the team I get to work alongside. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you. Item 4 is July is Parks and Recreation Month, and Councilmember O'Hara has a huge park in her district, and so have the opportunity to present on this.
Thank you. I don't have anything in my hands. Am I off the cuff here? Which I can be.
Very sorry. This is all on me.
Welcome, Trey. Thank you for being here. Tony, are you planning on coming up as well? No, okay, we have Trey.
Hold on just a second. I think what I'm going to do, I am sorry, that's all on me that I didn't give you the document. So let's do this. I'm going to go to the vice mayor for a special presentation. Let me track that down for you, all right? Go ahead. Madam Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. One moment before we celebrate the wonderful work of Parks and Rec. I want to acknowledge the passing of a community member just over a week ago, and that is Oliver Tree. Some of you may have seen that and heard that on the news. So we wanted to take a moment and present a proclamation for his family. And I'll go ahead and read this proclamation now. Whereas Oliver Tree was born and raised in Santa Cruz and has often credited the city's culture, skateboarding community, and creative spirit as influences on his work. And whereas Oliver Tree has achieved international recognition as a musician, songwriter, filmmaker, and visual artist, reaching audiences around the world through his creative projects. And whereas Oliver Tree's success has brought positive attention to Santa Cruz and serves as an inspiration to upcoming artists and creators. And whereas many residents and fans wish to celebrate his artistic contributions and lasting connection to the Santa Cruz community. Now, therefore, I, Shebra Kalantari Johnson, Vice Mayor, on behalf of our Mayor, Fred Keeley, and the City of Santa Cruz, do hereby proclaim June 29th, 2026 as Oliver Tree Day in the City of Santa Cruz in recognition of his achievements and contributions to the arts. And we'll make sure to present and give the proclamation to his family.
Good. Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I appreciate it. Now, in order to go forward, we'll go backwards to item 4. July is Parks and Recreation Month. It's all on me. I thought I was had the proclamation. I don't, but I know that Councilmember O'Hara does have a number of park properties in her district and may want to provide some opening comments anyway.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome, Tremaine Hedden-Jones, our Recreation Superintendent, and those that are also here from our Parks Department. I've had the good fortune of probably residing over, well, at least a couple, but being in chambers for probably almost 24 Parks and Rec months. And this might be the first time that I've seen you come up here solo. Sometimes there's all kinds of different exciting things that come with Parks and Recreation Month. I will say each and every year, celebrating this month in July is quite important and critical, but you provide such an important resource to our community all 11 other months of the year. So we're really excited to hear about what is in store for this month. I know that we usually have an incredible level of engaging activities, so please take it away, Trey, and welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilmember O'Hara, and thank you, Council, as well as Mayor Fred Keeley. So July is nationally recognized as Parks and Recreation Month. This presentation highlights the value of Parks and Recreation brings to Santa Cruz every day. Our department provides opportunities for recreation, community connection, environmental stewardship, and health and wellness. Throughout July, we celebrate these contributions through programs, events, and community engagement. Parks and Recreation Month has been celebrated nationwide since 1985 through the National Recreation and Parks Association. It recognizes the important roles Parks and Recreation professionals play in creating strong, healthy, and resilient communities. The theme for 2026 is The Power Of, which highlights how Parks and Recreation positively impacts every aspect of community life. This theme also reflects the work we do every day in Santa Cruz. Parks and Recreation creates opportunities for connection by bringing people together across generations and backgrounds. We provide spaces for play, learning, creativity, and healthy activity. We strengthen the sense of the community, offering places to gather, celebrate, and support one another. Parks connects residents to nature, which promotes environmental awareness and mental wellness. We foster belonging and equity by ensuring programs and spaces are welcoming and accessible. Ultimately, Parks and Recreation contributes to the overall well-being by supporting physical, mental, and social health. Here are some facts, and some breakdowns, but our Parks Division manages the city's parks, open spaces, beaches, urban forests, and the Greenbelt, as well as linear parks like West Cliff. Our Recreation Division offers programs that serve all residents and visitors of all ages through classes, camps, sports, cultural events, reservations, and community activation. Our Administration Division ensures responsible stewardship of public resources through permitting and long-term planning and budget. Some highlights, we have over 32 neighborhood parks and 6 community parks. These are our large regional parks. We manage over 1,300 acres of open space and 37 miles of trails. And we offer over 115 annual recreation program, 115,000 recreation program participants each year, and support over 2 million visitors to our wharf and beach area. In addition, these numbers demonstrate the significant impact of Parks and Recreation on quality of life in Santa Cruz. Some of the events that we provide year-round include the Clam Chowder Cook-Off for residents and visitors, the Woodies on the Wharf, and Halloween activities. Recreation programs range from fitness and outdoor adventure to youth camps and junior guards. These offerings support health, recreation, tourism, community pride, and economic vitality. Together, they help make Santa Cruz a vibrant place to live and work. Some of the highlights for this year's July's Parks and Recreation Month events include a diverse calendar of events that encourage participation and community engagement. Activity includes the Hearts in the Parks Blood Drive, a civic backstage tour, FOPAR, that's our Friends of Parks and Recreation group, Life at the Lane fundraiser at the Lane, and weekly Pilates program, which are available for all city residents and visitors. These events showcase how Parks and Recreation supports wellness, culture, and civic connection, and there are opportunities for everyone to participate in. Mid-month events include the highlight of accessibility and community involvement. Programs include free recreational swimming at the Harvard West Pool, adaptive beach experiences, archery demonstrations, and the Tuesday Night Live concert series at the Wharf. These activities help ensure recreation opportunities are inclusive and available to everyone. They also encourage residents to explore our city facilities and our outdoor spaces. Later in the month, residents can participate in environmental and historical programs. Activities include a watershed walk with Coastal Watershed Council, our significant tree walk with our urban forester, and the London Nelson Community Center open house. These programs connect people with Santa Cruz's natural resources, history, and community facilities. And you can find more events and activities at santacruzandparksandrec.com. We couldn't do any of this without our staff. They are the heart of our department for sure. And none of this could be possible without their dedication. Teams across park maintenance, recreation program, administration, and facility operations work every day to serve the community. Our staff maintain public spaces, create and support events, lead programs, and respond to our community's needs. We recognize their professionalism today and their commitment and resolve to create a positive impact on everyone in Santa Cruz. Parks and Recreation Month is an opportunity to celebrate people, programs, and places that strengthen our community. We invite you and our residents to participate fully in July events and explore the many resources available throughout the year. Parks and Rec are more than amenities. They are essential community assets that connect people, support wellness, and enrich the quality of life here in Santa Cruz. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, and I do have some water bottles for you while you're out in the parks.
Well, thank you very much, and many thanks to all of your colleagues, to the Friends of Park and Recreation, folks who make all of this happen. Thank you so very much. We get a lot of feedback about the wonderful nature of our parks, the work that was done over at Grant Street Park over the last year or so has just really remade that neighborhood's ability to access the park and have a grand old time there. And I'm sure that's true in everybody else's area in their neighborhoods where they live. So thank you so very much. Councilmember Golder.
I only have one question. Obviously, I love all things parks, but I got asked to volunteer, and I thought the FOPAR event was on the 3rd.
It is July 3rd.
Is it the 1st?
Oh, it's Friday, July 3rd. Yes, thank you. We'll correct that.
Very
It should
good.
be on the website. We have a ton of listed activities on the website as well.
Thank you so much. We are on oral communications. This would be the opportunity for anyone to address the city council on a matter under our jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda for a period of time not to exceed 2 minutes. In the event that we have folks who are both here and online, we will toggle back and forth. So we will begin. Mr. Ewing, good afternoon. Welcome, sir.
Hello, it's nice to be here. James Ewing Whitman. Seems like there's a pretty interesting calendar to stay for the afternoon if I so choose. I don't know, sometimes you just can't make things up, so I'm just gonna read some stuff that other people have written. 149 newly built coal-burning power plants built and more on the way. China puts online a new coal-fired power plant. I think it's every 8 days. China emits more CO2 than the rest of the developed world combined, manufacturing EV batteries, solar panels, and wind turbines, among other things, being rolled out in the West using energy from coal-fired power plant stations so the West can pretend to be green. It's a pretty big pretend. It's a quote by George Orwell. Political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable. So I don't really know kind of what to comment on. There seems like there's a lot of things to comment on. I'll probably close on President Putin's comments to Germany. You know, the example of a Faraday cage implies that it's protecting the outside individual from the effects of the microwave radiation. Well, gee, put your phone in the microwave and have somebody call it. Doesn't work so well. Use an EMF tester to confirm that. People's homes are reverse Faraday cages with all the legislation that's been passed in the United States. People should pay attention to how damaged they're being. You know, a microwave oven operates on 2.4 gigahertz, so do earbuds. You know, if anybody were to look at the information on their phone, they'd say, do not keep it within an inch of your body because it is dangerous. You wonder why all the cancer is so relevant. So Putin is not going to invade Germany because it would be a complete waste of time. They've already screwed up their country almost as much as the United States. But he has compassion for them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone online with their hand up? What we're going to do is we're going to take the one online, then we'll be right with you, sir. Person online, good afternoon. Welcome to the Santa Cruz City Council meeting. 3, 2, 1. Good afternoon, sir.
Hi.
Nope. We'll go to you in a minute. We have somebody here. Be ready to go when I ask you to go. Good afternoon and welcome, sir.
Afternoon. For nearly 3 months now, Coral Street has had no bathrooms due to Housing Matters Services day closure. The city has refused to install porta potties there, even though they've installed porta potties by the downtown library. There's porta potties by the skate park across the river. There's even the 2 toilets outside the library plus the one in the library are not enough for the farmer's market. So when the farmer's market is happening, there's 2 additional porta potties installed. I can only assume the lack of porta potties on Coral Street may be incompetence, probably malice, but in targeting unhoused people, the city has caught the general public in the crossfire because the city cannot answer the question, where's the poop going? For all, the city knows the poop is going down the river and washing up on beaches full of tourists. I think it's a public health crisis that they should be aware of. I think it's kind of ridiculous. You've created a situation where somebody vacationing here with their children, if they were to come up to the city and ask, are my children slurping poop water when they play in the water because of you? You would not be able to say no. We need toilets on Coral Street. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Person online, good afternoon and welcome.
Hi, I don't know if you can hear me. There was quite a delay on the last statements. Actually, can't hear anything from your end. If someone could raise a hand, I would then know. Thank you very much. Hi, this is Bradley Snyder. I just want to make some comments about, I guess, the district elections that, we agreed to before Fred was elected as our first four-year term mayor. I think just like the jungle primary or the top two, the only people who get on the ballot in the fall, I just don't think it's a very good system, and I want to voice that. I want people to know that I kind of object to the consequences of it. It kind of has a tendency to lock out good candidates. And, in both cases, why the city of Santa Cruz and why the state of California, I don't know. But what I do know is, we don't, we've had like this just absolutely steamrolled downtown. I mean, 1 million buildings have gone up, maybe not 1 million, maybe 10, but really enormous buildings. And, so, in the name of low income housing, but, a small fraction are actually low income. And I think people know this. Every single candidate at the candidate forum for mayor, even Coonerty, who's likely to win, frankly, they recognize that development has gone haywire in downtown Santa Cruz. There's been too much development, too many buildings. And they propose new buildings with just great regularity, and the more absurd ones don't get built, but equally, large, overly large buildings do. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to the council meeting.
Hello there. My name is Adrian. I'm a resident in downtown. So we say housing first. As a city, we say housing is the most important thing. We put money towards it. So why are we towing people's homes? I was on Coral Street during a sweep and a cop went and without a complaint from a business owner or a property owner, they towed someone's home who is not able to get it back because of the absurd towing prices. It's over, I think it was $300 to get it released from the PD, let alone the daily cost of it being at a tow yard. This happened on a Thursday. If they can't make the money by Friday, that's 2 more days. This person is not able to get his home back. There is another person on the street, on Coral Street, who could have had a home and who did have a home. And with the police's behavior, they have thrown away entire homes I've seen. Last week, there was someone who slept in a few too many minutes, and the police came, shut down the street, and they said, anything that you can carry, you can take, everything else gets left behind. They couldn't carry their bike, they couldn't carry their tent, they couldn't carry any of their important things, which were all left behind. And when they went back and asked for their bike back, the police said no, and we had to threaten to bring a formal complaint in order to get their bike, which is how they get to work, how they get anywhere around town. With older adults on Coral Street, there are people over 50, over 60, over 70 who are subjected to the same sweeps that everyone else is. It puts a big toll on their heart, on their health, on their lungs, on their nervous system. I would like the city to make a list of names and badge numbers with photos of all of the officers. Some have refused to identify themselves. While standing directly outside my home in downtown, they were 4 officers to 1 unarmed civilian who did not identify themselves. The officers did not identify themselves. And so all I have is a part of a name. And we're gonna be coming out with a list of demands for the city council that I hope you consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else online?
No one with their hand up.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the city council meeting.
Hello, my name is Susan Cavalieri. I have come to talk about the issue of extreme heat in Europe. And I'm sure you know that Antonio Guterres is again urging the world to act on fossil fuels. A crisis could soon be facing California. The super El Nino is developing, which could bring extreme rainfall and flooding. It is in the interest of the city to support no immunity for fossil fuels in order to be able to continue the lawsuit which you have filed against the companies and which the city has joined to stop the fossil fuels from companies from being immune from any sort of problem with the fossil fuel induced heating and flooding. So I have a list of a number of people who are in favor of no immunity for the fossil fuel industry. We need to have the city continue the lawsuit against fossil fuels, please.
Well, thank you very much. Please give that to the clerk. We'll be glad to enter that into the record. Anyone else on oral communication? Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Nicholas Whitehead. About an hour ago, I was sitting in a remarkable coffee bar called the 11th Hour. And I was really astonished to see how many young people gathered there. There must have been about 50 or 60, some working there and some meeting up there. And they were all so beautiful and dignified, you know? That's the future. That's the kind of future we need in Santa Cruz. But at the same time, look at the name of the coffee bar, 11th Hour. And I'm reflecting on the 11th hour facing the nation as a whole, in contrast to the beautiful young people I saw, particularly our status as a protective city, a sanctuary city. I think there could be some difficult days ahead towards the national sovereignty. And it's going to be essential for small locations like ours to unite with other similar locations. I guess, do I have the name right? The League of California Cities? Yeah, I think it's going to be really important to unite. Democracy is only going to survive, in my opinion. Democracy as we like it is only going to survive at the local level. And unity is strength. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. Anyone else on oral communication? We are on presiding officer announcements. Have none. Statements of disqualification. Any member wish to make a statement of disqualification? Councilmember Brunner.
Thank you, Mayor. Agenda item 12, movie theater retention incentive pilot program extension as it relates to my employment. Agenda item 27, cooperative retail management business real property improvement district assessments for fiscal year 2027 as it relates to my employment. And agenda item number 33, 201 Front Street as it relates to my employment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse
Others
me,
on
one moment.
disqualifications.
Councilmember Brunner, I believe agenda item 18, that's the item related to
yes. Thank you for reminding me from closed session, agenda item 18, number 1, as well. Thank you, as it relates to my employment.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councilmember.
Sorry, can I also pipe it? I don't know if you said item 18. Did you talk about item 18? You did, okay.
Yes, 18, number 1.
Others on disqualifications? Thank you. Additions or deletions?
I have none, no.
I have none.
Very good. Thank you. Madam City Attorney, report from closed session.
Yes, the council met in closed session to discuss liability claims with its legal counsel. Those are the claims noted on the agenda, and I would note that for the first claim described, the claim of James Edward Abbott, Councilmember Brunner did recuse herself in light of a potential conflict of interest related to her employment. The council also discussed real property negotiations regarding 1070 River Street, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, want to draw our attention to anything on the meeting calendar?
No changes that were in front of
Very
you.
good. Thank you. We are on the consent agenda. For those of you that might not be familiar with it, we will be taking up items 6 through 26 on one motion. And what we will do is I will give council members an opportunity to pull an item, comment on an item, or ask questions. I will then give you an opportunity as well as folks who are online, regarding the consent agenda. If you wish to speak on the consent agenda, we will recognize you for a period of time not to exceed 3 minutes on all items. So if you want to comment on one or you want to comment on 10, you get 3 minutes total to do that. I'm going to start on my left with Councilmember Golder on the consent agenda.
I just have a comment on 15. I just wanted to say how happy I am to see that we're able to acquire this fireboat. I know the department has long wanted / needed one, and so I think it's a great asset to preserve the wharf and protect life and public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Hara on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few comments on the collective of 7, 8, 9, and 10. My thanks to Larry Mwale. Are you in here? Bonnie Lipscomb. For pulling together a lot of work right before we recess. I realize that there is obviously urgency in getting these contracts renewed, but they represent so much more than the work that's involved with the administrative angle of contract renewal. They represent what we're collectively, a piece of what we're collectively doing day in and day out on homelessness response. And I want to particularly note my excitement on this new relationship with the Homeless Garden Project. I see the executive director here and probably some board members. I had the good fortune of being here and working on the Downtown Streets Team contract when it initiated here in town. And it was a really important step for our community to be, quite frankly, thinking about our unhoused population in a way that is more focused on dignity first, moving towards employment opportunities. And the Homeless Garden Project, you've been doing this as part of your mission for as long as you have. And I think stepping into this role and providing this different work experience for your volunteers and for your clients is going to be really an exceptional model. And we really appreciate you trying this out. And I look forward to seeing the results. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Madam Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I would also like to comment on 7, 8, 9, and 10. I won't repeat my colleagues' comments, but do align myself with what Councilmember O'Hara said. I want to daylight this. $5,171,810. That is what's before us in items 7, 8, 9, and 10, which are all supporting homeless services and those who are unhoused in our community. And I think I want to daylight that because I think it goes unnoticed too often. We have stepped a little bit beyond the scope of what cities traditionally do. And we are doing this because we care about our community, we care about public safety, we care about the health and well-being of everyone in our community. I appreciate the speakers who came earlier and spoke about the challenges around restrooms. We are working on those challenges. But just for everyone to know, this is something that we've committed to as a city council and as a city. And actually, I got a correspondence today that said, do we really want to be spending our money in this way? Do we really want to be spending our general fund dollars in this way? Yes, we do. It's important, and we've seen the results, we've seen the outcomes, we've seen our point in time count reduced in the last 3 years. So thank you for all the work that everyone's put into this, and I look forward to continuing the partnership with our previous partners and new partners.
Thank you. Councilmember Newsom on the consent agenda, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to associate myself with the comments made by Councilmember O'Hara and Vice Mayor Colin Johnson on 7, 8, 9, and 10. And especially on 10, I'm just really happy that the Homeless Garden Project is stepping in to fill this gap that was left by the Downtown Streets team. And they do wonderful work in our community. And so just really happy that this item's on our agenda. And just want to thank Deputy City Manager Lipscomb and Director Mwale for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brunner on the consent agenda.
Thank you. I have comments. 7, 8, 9, and 10. I will just repeat. This is an important work, and I'm very supportive of all of the items here before us. thank you to everyone who works so hard day in, day out. Especially want to call out our Encompass Downtown Outreach Worker team. Agenda item 9 is the contract to expand services 7 days a week. And to have that resource of outreach workers 7 days a week is huge for our community. So thank you to that. Thank you to Homeless Garden Project for stepping into piloting a program, a workforce development program that also will be a wonderful resource, and we'll see how that goes. So thank you for the work into that. Agenda item 15 is authorizing the purchase of a fireboat for the Santa Cruz Fire Department with fire public safety impact fee funds. And I just want to call out that the infrastructure and the equipment directly impact emergency response and capabilities and public safety. And a fireboat is something that our fighters have been advocating as a helpful tool that will definitely be an asset for timely water rescues. So I'm glad to see all of these infrastructure and resources for our first responders coming forward. Thank you for that. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Councilmember Trujillo. Very good. This will be the opportunity for anyone to address us on the council consent agenda today for a period not to exceed 3 minutes. In the event that we have folks both in chambers as well as online, we'll talk back and forth. Anybody in chambers wish to make comments? This is your opportunity.
Rolling me along. Come back to haunt you. So on the consent agenda, I want to comment on number 15 and number 8. So I think it's great that I'm quite surprised that the fire departments don't already have a boat or 2 or 17. At least they're going to get one. Now back to number 8, it's my understanding that there's, a bit over $4 million to bring in an additional 60 units at the De La Vega frequency weapons location with all the cell towers and stuff. I stopped going up there because I seem to get attacked more there than any other location besides Cabrillo College in this room. I think it's just kind of fascinating. The city is under no obligation to do anything for the homeless, but they certainly seem to be profiting off of that population. You know, as I spoke before, microwave oven is a terrible example of a Faraday cage because you put your phone in there and it certainly doesn't work. You think it actually protects you. The front does a lot better than the other 5 sides of that cube. So what brought me in to speak more than 7 years ago is why are we allowing military frequency weapons in civilian locations, and how this reflects to the homeless is, isn't your home supposed to be safe, secure, and private? Is it with all these intrusive frequency weapons everywhere? Absolutely not. So I'm kind of flipping the script on what George Orwell stated about government. I'll read it again. Political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable. There's we are all in this together. All the crap that's going on right now. Has anybody seen the film Terminator? Heard of Skynet? Apparently we have another new trillionaire on the planet. Isn't that a great example of Skynet? People are complaining about the resources going to these AI data centers. How are you going to dismantle an AI data center when it's in our atmosphere? Just kind of begging the question of witnessing a lot of misinformation in these rooms, both from you folks and from the people who speak about stuff. So that's enough for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else online? We'll take the next person online. Welcome to the Senate.
Thank you. Hi, Fred. It's and Council. It is Bradley Snyder. I think, let's see, I wanted to say, I think the fireboat's probably better purchased than Bearcat in terms of the good it can do to the community. Water rescue lately has been a real issue, just like all the traffic fatalities we've been having in the county. It's kind of been an uptick in issues. The UCSC lease, I don't know if that pertains to the issue I've spoken many times to council about, of the that kind of unbelievable amount of deadwood up in that zone that's still city land above UCSC. I wanted to say with the volunteer center, I don't know what happened to Downtown Streets team, but it was a pretty good program, and people enjoyed the benefit of it for a long time. And I feel like there were some blind spots, like they wouldn't clean certain spots. Ocean Street in particular always had debris, always had rubbish, and that's the first thing people see when they come to town. So yeah, trash pickup in that area would have been nice. And then also the road that goes up off of the back of Beach Hill, for whatever reason, people just take their trash and just set it on the sidewalk, and it never seemed to get cleaned up. I don't think I'm going through here 22. I don't think there's anything else I want to comment on except highly supportive of the homeless garden project and all the work they do. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the City Council meeting.
Hi. I'm glad that there's $5 billion going to houseless people. And I worked part-time for People First. I like the company. I think that as far as nonprofits go, it's one of the better. And also, if we have $5 million to go to this, why is it being spent on a prison on a hill? There's a lot of, let's see. So when there's no bathrooms on Coral Street, because this relates, I promise, it leads people to have to walk really, really far distances. It leads people to have to hold their bladders for really long. It leads to UTIs, which can lead to kidney infections, which can lead to death. And if we have $5 million, why can't 1,000 go to bathrooms on Coral Street this week? Why has that not happened 3 months ago when the day services closed? Why can't we leverage the funding to Housing Matters, to Funding Matters, to force them to re-implement their day services? Lots of their employees quit when the day services closed out of protest because they believe that the day services did good work. So why are the day services closed? If we have money for homelessness, why aren't we using it in the way that we can? Like, when we talk about managed encampments, what we mean is not a prison on a hill. What we mean isn't searches on the way in and out. What we mean isn't only accessible by shuttle or by car. What we mean is in the city, plots of land given to houseless people to build their own communities and to be safe from police violence and to be safe from the harassment daily and the medical effects of that. So if we have $5 million, why can't we put some city land towards housing people, towards giving people a place to set up camp where their things aren't going to be thrown away every single week, where their things aren't going to be discarded like they're trash and end up in the landfill? Because all of that survival gear, that doesn't go to someone else, that doesn't go to a charitable foundation, that doesn't go to anything. When the police throw away survival gear, which they're not allowed to throw away, by the way, but they still do, they're required to give 90 days for people to come pick it up at the police station, but they don't. That is ending up in the landfill and causing more pollution. That's negatively affecting our environment every day. So when we talk about funding, People First needs funding, it deserves funding, please fund it. And also put some towards managed encampments that aren't prisons on a hill, and put some towards bathrooms on Coral Street, on other locations where there are a lot of houseless people, because we've shown that we can, like my friend mentioned. So why don't we? It's taken a while.
Ms. Bush, anyone else online?
No one there.
Matters back before the body, pleasure of the body. Councilmember Golder moves the consent agenda. Second by Councilmember Newsom. Debate or discussion on the item? Clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Triguero.
Aye.
Brunner.
Aye, with the exception of the items I previously stated.
Newsom.
Aye.
Golder.
Aye.
O'Hara.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Cooley.
Aye. Motion passes and so ordered. We are on the consent agenda public hearings. That will be items 27 and 28. We'll be holding the public hearing on that. I'll now open the public hearing on items 27 and 28. Let me see if there are comments by the council first, and then we'll go out to the public. Council members, questions or comments on this? We're now open this up to the public. Public hearing is open. Anyone wish to testify on this item? Last call. Anybody online with their hands up? Matter is back closed. The public hearing is closed. Matter is back before the body. Pleasure of the body.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move items 27 and 28, please.
Motion by Councilmember O'Hara, second by the Vice Mayor. Under debate and discussion. Seeing, hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Triguero.
Aye.
Brunner.
Aye, with the exception of item 27.
Newsom.
Aye.
Golder.
Aye.
O'Hara. Aye. Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Cooley.
Aye. Motion passes and so ordered. We are on item number 29. This is an independent police auditor report for 2025. We have that report in our packet along with various other materials. We are going to ask the city manager to open on this. We have various other folks who will be available for responses. Mr. City Manager, good afternoon, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm actually going to hand it over to Emmeline on our team to introduce the team.
Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. My name is Emmeline Nguyen, Principal Management Analyst for the City Manager's Office. Today, we are joined by representatives from the OIR Group, the city's independent police auditor. Presenting are Michael Janako, founder of OIR Group, and Samra Marian, the police oversight and accountability expert, who also serves as the community liaison for Santa Cruz. They will present the 2025 Independent Police Auditor Report and answer any questions from the City Council. So with that, I will turn it over to the OIR Group.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome. Good to see you again, sir. Thank you for your good work.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's good to see you, and I understand this may be the last time we see each other, at least in this forum. Great to see council members, a lot of familiar faces, city leadership, and really appreciate the opportunity to be with you this afternoon on a gorgeous day in the city of Santa Cruz. My name is, as indicated, is Michael Janako, and I've been your independent police auditor, part of the IPA team for going on 5-6 years now. And before we get into more of the details, one of the things I always want to do is try to give perspective on what this report is and what this report is not. There are no headlines coming out of this report because there's nothing that is worthy of a headline, which is all good news, right? Auditors are always going to be looking at things with an idea of improvement, but one of the things that isn't in our report is what hasn't happened in your city, which is just as important in many ways as what has happened. So when's the last time, for example, there was a use of deadly force or an officer-involved shooting? And so those are the things that can tear communities apart, and we're just not seeing them. We didn't see them over this cycle. Obviously, we are always looking at ways in which we think the department can improve their processes, but the focus is really on process with regard to the themes coming out of this most recent report. The other thing I would say is that when we first, were with the police department, there was some relatively low-hanging fruit that was addressed early on in the cycles. Now, we're not involved in police oversight 101 anymore. we're really looking at it as sort of a graduate level, if you can understand that analogy. I think that kind of makes sense in my view, my way of looking at it. So it's becoming more difficult for us to find things to recommend or identify. That doesn't mean that we're going to continue to look at. One of the advantages we can bring to the table is that we have assignments with so many other jurisdictions. We can try to import some of the things that are working in other cities to your city, and that's part of what we do on a regular basis. The other thing I think needs to be mentioned, and I do this every year, but it's continues to be true every year, and that is the cooperation, collaboration with your chief and his leadership team with regard to allowing us the ability to do our work. That starts with access to information, unfettered access to information. We get the investigative reports. We get all the documents we need in order to do our audits. But more significantly, we also have the ability to engage with police leadership. And that doesn't happen, the controversial case, let's talk to the chief about it. It's more structured than that. And I think we've talked about this before, but at least on a quarterly basis, we are meeting regularly with your chief and his leadership team. And I think that really helps in a number of ways. One, it gives us an idea to start talking about some of the trends that we see with him. And also he can export some of the challenges that we may not understand because we don't live in the city of Santa Cruz, although Samara does, but not engaged on a daily basis with his challenges that we're not aware of. So with that being said, we're going to do sort of a high-level review of what we saw over the past year, and then obviously be available to answer any questions for you. I keep saying this, but the longer I say this, the older I get, so I'm just going to skip over that. But we have been doing this work for over 20 years, not only for the city of Santa Cruz, but for other agencies as well. We are going to be reporting to the Board of Supervisors next week, actually, on our annual report with the Sheriff's Office and the County of Santa Cruz. And so there's some overlap there that I think ends up being very productive. As I indicated, we're meeting regularly with your chief and his leadership team. We're providing input on policy and procedures, review all completed complaint investigations. And, one of the things we are continue to be proud of is that the city allows us the ability to be transparent and allows your community to see what were the allegations that came in over the past year, how did the department handle them, and whether we agreed with the way in which they were handled and whether the result was reasonable, which is sort of our assessment, and we get to do that on a regular basis. Review officer-involved shootings, 0 in this cycle, which is something, again, to be proud of. The other thing we do is we have an outreach component, and we also provide an alternative way in which individuals who may not feel like comfortable going to the police station and filing a formal complaint, where they can come to us. And the advantage of having a city resident as part of our team really shines through with regard to that piece. So when we get a complaint or a concern or an inquiry, Samara's frontline, and we'll either meet with the person or talk through the options that individual has, and also explain how there's going to be an overlay of independent review with regard to any complaint that does come in. And then our last piece is talking with advocacy groups, whether it's the Chiefs Advisory Board or whether it's the NAACP or whether it's the ACLU. We're regularly plugged in with those folks, not just when we release a report, but on a regular basis. And then the last piece, of course, is what we're here for today, which is to report to you all. And I don't want to discount and tell you how important that is, because it does give us some status within the community, and it allows us not only to talk with you and hear what your concerns are as elected representatives of your city, but it also gives us an opportunity to present to you all sort of a report card on how we think the department did over the past year. just with a sort of overview, our takeaways for this past year is that there has been improvement with regard to many things that I think are process-oriented and kind of weedsy, but really important to ensure an effective response to what I think is one of the key pieces and responsibilities of the chief, and that is the accountability piece. Ensuring that when there's a use of force, that gets fully investigated. Ensuring that when there's a complaint, that again, that's objectively investigated in a timely way with a appropriate result. 2 or 3 years ago, there were some issues with regard to timeliness. That's not an issue anymore. So we feel that this department, even though they have many challenges with all the other responsibilities they have, policing is not generally a reflective organization because they're often on to the next project or the next crisis or the next challenge. And so our conversations sort of require them to come back and have that reflective moment to think, could more guidance be provided to your officers on this issue? And those are the kinds of questions we ask on a regular basis with your chief. We continue to talk about some of the issues that are, front and center in our mind as we go through the protocols and through the cases with your chief. And, one of the things we do see is that what has now become a quite excellent critical incident review process, in our view, more cases could be advantaged by going through that critical incident review process. And that's one of our focuses for this past year. And as I talked about the improvements, 2 of the things that I think stand out for me, well, actually 3 that I really wanted to hit on this slide. One is that in the past, what we saw when there was a complaint and when the complaint was completed was there would be a state law requires that the complainant be informed of the results of that investigation. And while this department was honoring its obligation to report back to the complainant, what we did see is that the letters seemed to be like form letters. There wasn't a lot of customization with regard to informing the complainant about all the investigative steps, and there often were a lot of investigative steps that were done in order to come to the result that the department came to. And what we have found in our other experience is that if you customize that letter and you personalize that letter and you show your work in the sense that you advise the complainant all the work that was done, the review of the body-worn camera, the interviews that were conducted, other evidentiary information that was collected and reviewed. Some complainants are still just going to want the bottom line and want a sustained complaint, but all complainants, if those letters are customized, will recognize that the complaint was taken seriously and it wasn't just brushed off. And so that piece, we think, we've seen significant improvement on that piece. Body-worn cameras and canine policy are also 2 areas in which there has been marked improvement with regard to providing more guidance to officers. The body-worn camera for us as auditors is a game changer. But if they're not activated and if they're not timely activated, there's no footage to review. In the old days, before the advent of body-worn cameras, many cases were, he said this, she said this, she said this, the officer said this, and it was no way to break that tie, right? It ends up being an unresolved or not sustained case because there's no other evidence that's there. But with the advent of body-worn cameras, we now have a record that is usually determinative in deciding whether or not any of the allegations were substantiated because you now have audio, video footage of that event. When you don't have it, you don't have that advantage. So it's really important in our view to ensure that those body-worn cameras are on. And so we have made some suggestions, which I think the department is not disagreeing with us on ways to improve that guidance for officers. And I'm now going to pivot here and allow
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you. I'm going to turn to some key findings, which are really the kinds of trends that we're seeing and areas that we think that the department can focus on in this last half of the year. The first finding is we suggest that the department's internal affairs investigation, that it support a broader learning for the department. We believe that the complaints and the investigative process, they're important not only for resolving the individual incident, but that the investigative process and the internal review should also identify areas for improvement. So we're suggesting a more holistic or integrated approach, so that it's not just focusing on allegations of misconduct, but also looking at, are there policy changes, training needs, communication concerns, and supervisory issues that can be identified and is addressed as part of that process. And this enables the department by identifying these patterns, strengthening the training, enhancing supervision. These are great tools for organizational learning and improvement. Sometimes we see a narrowing of the review. And for example, there was a case involving the 12-year-old who had called 911 for support when she was being threatened by others in a park. The investigation did a great job focusing on some of the officer's conduct, but there were other areas, including the investigation, the rapport that the officer had with the 12-year-old, as well as a suspect that could have been looked at a deeper level. So we're suggesting that when the department is doing these reviews, that they're looking broadly as well. And based on that case and other cases involving youth, we've observed that the department could benefit by providing officer training on interactions with youth and police. So we are suggesting that that training include the development of differences between the juvenile and adult brain and incorporate scenario-based training that is looking at de-escalation techniques, communication skills, and even trauma recognition that's very unique to police and youth encounters. Moving on to another trend or finding that we identified in this, in reviewing last year's cases, we found an opportunity to look at issues and gaps, because without having that kind of structured system, there are opportunities that are lost. One case that we had reviewed demonstrated progress and also some continued gaps. There was a complaint involving an improperly cited display of a valid disabled placard, and the department did an excellent job investigating what had occurred. They rescinded the citation. They sent the complainant a very detailed responsive letter, similar to what Mike was talking about, which goes a long way in terms of police rapport with a community member. But there were some broader issues that we also suggest that the department look at. There was a supervisor involved who wasn't aware of some of the exemptions involving disabled placards. And so we, again, recommend a more integrated approach that looks at, is there training that should be provided or a department bulletin so that not just the individual incident is resolved, but is there an impact and a way to move forward in a much more holistic way that addresses those kind of concerns. Another key finding that we are suggesting that the department look at, a trend for this year in terms of cases, is looking at being able to promptly address and correct performance. Again, it's a situation where we believe by looking at all of the complaints, identifying, are there trends, are there ways in which that there are lessons learned, there are patterns from looking at the complaint process and the specifics of those complaints, that the department would have an opportunity to revise policy, revise training, and be using the complaint process as a way for improvement. Another area has to do, it coincides with promptly addressing and correcting performance. We came here last year and again this year, we're observing that certain officers and supervisors appear to be involved in repeat complaint matters. And repeat involvement doesn't necessarily mean misconduct. There's many officers that have a lot of public contact, and that public contact easily can involve complaints. So complaints alone aren't the issue, but it's when the ability to look across those complaints, not just simply in isolation, to look at those complaints to see, are there patterns, are there issues around communication, issues around decision-making, de-escalation, that the more structured across-case analysis is merited. So in part, for the department to be able to do that, we're recommending that there's a more formal system for tracking and reviewing complaint patterns to identify when there's multiple complaints against the same officer. And we suggest treating the incidents not just in isolation, but again, having this more holistic view of employment and of employees' performance that connects the information across cases to identify these patterns, coaching needs, and broader risk indicators. The last finding that we're urging the department to look at, it's really a trend, is that the discussion that we've had about how to look more holistically, that ability to do so can be enhanced by data tracking systems. And we came here last year talking about the department had purchased a particular platform. They're slowly moving forward. They're attempting to actually have an officer trained in it and actually have it dispersed and use it. Our hope is that it happens at a much higher, faster pace, because it's so important that these data systems, this software, enables the kind of cross-complaint analysis that is so critical. And I just wanted to give you a small example, is that there was an officer, a supervisor involved in a case, and looking at the conduct in that particular case, and had commented that this was the first time he saw this kind of behavior. But the reality was that same officer, his subordinate, was involved in a pending complaint involving the same kind of conduct. Had there been this data tracking system, that would have been easily accessible to the supervisor. So the ability to collect this data, be it around complaints, use of force, pursuits, there are technological fixes that could enhance supervisors and command staff's ability to better stand back and identify trends, complaints, use of force. So we're urging the department to, as best as possible, to populate this software, also have the individuals trained, and have it be an actual part of the system. From our perspective, this data component, the technological fix could assist in some of the trends that we're seeing that we're encouraging the department to look at this year. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is our recommendation tracker. And we play a vital role, of course, complaint investigation, meeting with the police department, but an essential part of our role is to talk about what kinds of policy and training could enhance and respond to the kinds of complaints we see or the needs of policing. The example of our suggestion around juvenile and police interactions, that's one of those kinds of situations where we see a vital way in which the department could enhance its training. We put together a recommendation tracker that's at the end of our annual report. We had done that last year so that you can see all the progress that's made. Since we started our position here in 2020, we've recommended over 83 recommendations, and the vast majority of those recommendations the police department has implemented. We spend a lot of time talking about recommendations and how to craft them and tailor them to the department's needs, such that they're addressing the kinds of forward progress that we're hoping to see. The majority of these, as I said, the majority of these recommendations have been acted on. The outstanding recommendations in this particular annual report, we haven't had that opportunity yet to sit down with the department to work through those specific recommendations, though in all through last year as we were working through those cases and making those suggestions to the department, it was in a very cooperative, collaborative spirit. So we're looking forward to our next meeting with the department to work through those outstanding recommendations. We appreciate the collaboration with the police department and this opportunity to present to you. So this concludes our presentation, and we welcome your questions and comments.
Thank you for the presentation and for your fine work. Let me ask if council members have questions or comments at this stage. Councilmember Golder is recognized.
Thank you. I just have one question, and I don't know, I'm just wondering, based on the recommendations you have for our department and the recommendations for the sheriff's office, knowing that you're presenting to them, are some of them kind of similar, or things they can collaborate on, or any kind of cross-departmental work that you recommend?
Thank you for that great question. I'd say the recommendations are often different depending on what kinds of cases and issues, but I'd say there's overlap always around mental health response. So it's always informative to see what's happening on a city level, what's happening on a county level. And again, the collaborative environment for having those discussions is excellent.
I mean, to that, I would just say thank you. And I think I've actually talked with the city manager about this, about possible training. I know they had something in Watsonville with the police department around the youth and the mental health stuff. I think your wife might have been like involved in that. And I would love to see something like that happening up here in collaboration with our schools, and also including the sheriff's office if they were open to it, because it's really important work.
That would be terrific, yeah. A lot of law enforcement agencies don't necessarily provide the training, but I think there's really a move. The International Association of Chiefs of Police is also very supportive of having that kind of training. So it would be great to see that happen in this county and city, of course.
Councilmember Triguero. Did you have questions?
Just, yeah. Sorry, you can go there first. I jumped too left.
Here, I'm sorry. Councilmember Triguero, then Councilmember Bruner, and then the Vice Mayor. Councilmember Triguero.
These are for comments and questions. Yes.
Comments or questions?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your report. It's great to see both of you again this year, and appreciate your work and your recommendations with our department year over year. I was wondering, actually, it's kind of a tail question to what Councilmember Golder just asked, but in alignment with the county, I'm interested in software. Are you able to say if they are using Blue Team? I know our city had adopted that.
They're using, it's either Blue Team or IA Pro, I'm not remembering, but they most certainly, they have software so that those discussions are the data, the software is permitting that level of discussion around trends in information that's at a really effective level.
Great, thank you for that. I think for me, that's the biggest missed opportunity is the ability to, as you put, find patterns in performance, essentially, to track multiple complaints so that we're able to discern if there's a risk, if there's any indicators, let me say, of risks. And I believe that in 2025, when we had this audit, this time last year, that the PD had committed to populating its Blue Team software. So I think for me, it's a bit of frustration, to be honest, right? That they haven't populated it, that they haven't designated someone as the supervisor for that. Is there a recommendation specifically from your team about that IT component, or is that something maybe I should be recommending?
We continue to urge so we've made that recommendation in the past. We urge it to be a priority. I know that, as you've mentioned, it is it's the department's priority. And I know that there's been some obstacles and challenges.
Sure. I think designating a supervisor to manage that, I mean, it is an industry standard at this point, I believe. And so I'm glad that our PD invested, as I recall, in several software programs. And then if this is the elected one, then I think for, mistakes, repeated deficiencies, non-compliance, these kinds of things that could be tracked, that's really critical for me. Another thing that you had mentioned is training around trauma recognition, youth, and even disability. So I'm mindful that the recommendations and what you've observed there is something that we can take and brainstorm more. Maybe that can be built into any kind of coaching that we can kind of formulate within the team as well. I think there's officers who are veterans in our community who really understand disability uses and such, and then there's new information for all of our officers to understand as we all bend to understand better trauma and support youth in our community. I guess finally, the last thing I want to comment on, Mayor, is the piece about cameras, turning on their cameras, and the recommendations that I saw. I think it's recommendations 11 and 12 in your report. Once again, for me, this is a liability issue. This is something that I can see in the individual complaints that concern me, and that I want our officers to fully understand that the policy that was enacted in August of 2025 about activating their cameras for all service calls, is one that we all take really, really seriously. So your recommendations 11 and 12 about removing the ambiguity of when they deactivate, and when we track also there, implementing some sort of formal accountability around the cameras themselves, would be, I think, in my mind, one of the strongest recommendations that you've given in this report that I think that our PD needs to act on immediately. That's all for now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Brunner.
Thank you. Thank you for the report and the updates. I always appreciate the detail in the report and the tables of the specific cases, incidents, the outcomes, and it's really good to see all of the work and situations that come up, and your list of recommendations over time. The transparency portal is such an important asset for our community to access and to have that place to give praise or give a complaint or a question. And so I really appreciate having an independent auditor and to have a look at these situations through that lens with recommendations. Now, in the report, there are metrics you gave here metrics on recommendations over time, and that was really helpful too, because I know since I've been on council since 2020, there have been many recommendations each year, and where are we in progress, right? And so we continually take it seriously, the recommendations. I know our department is looking at the recommendations. It comes before Public Safety Committee, the recommendations, they get implemented. So thank you for showing that metric of those that have been implemented over time. I guess for me, my question is the timing of these recommendations and understanding. I look at, it's not necessarily black and white, but the whole context of a situation and the officers having resources and tools to do their job effectively. And I know that's not always the case. And so for example, in the recommendation of coaching, and you'd mentioned mental health in regards to sheriff and Santa Cruz Police, things like mental health liaisons we have at the city of Santa Cruz. I don't know what the comparison is at the sheriff's office, for example, but those are tools that can help an officer in a situation do their job and have that resource there. And so do you look at the whole context as well? And is that in play here in the recommendations?
Thank you for your question. And yes, absolutely. And because we have an ongoing rapport with the police department, and I pick up the phone and talk to their professional standards sergeant, we have this opportunity to highlight things that are urgent. We have the opportunity to talk about, can there be a department bulletin issued right away on a particular issue? So that rapport is excellent. And then there are things that take a lot longer. I mean, we've made a recommendation around mediation. We made that a while ago, and we've had some excellent discussions with the chief and his staff about how to implement a good mediation program that's going to be tailored to the needs of this community. And something like that's going to take more time. So we have the opportunity to highlight things that we feel are urgent and have the department respond to. And again, it's often issues around staffing and resources on the police department's side.
Thank you. I absolutely see that, the staffing and resources. And as you give these recommendations now, the department and us will move forward in figuring out and looking and evaluating. And I know the city manager, to support the police department and our officers in being able to execute and do their job with support and resources and tools. So I look forward to seeing how those can be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Vice Mayor is recognized.
Thank you. I didn't jump on it quickly enough when you were looking for comments. Thank you for the work and for the report and the presentation. This is a comment and then an invitation for Chief Escalante, question for him. To respond to. Just want to daylight the recommendation 3 that Councilmember Triguero also brought up, that the department should provide training on developmental differences between juveniles and adults, incorporating scenario-based instructions on de-escalation, communication, trauma recognition, tailored to police-juvenile interactions. These are all important recommendations. I think this is very important given our commitment to children and youth well-being. So I would like to invite our police chief to just comment on your perspective of this specific recommendation. And then also, what are the next steps internally? How do you bring your team together? I know I've asked this question before, but how do you bring your team together to look through the recommendations and prioritize, what you're going to act on immediately and what needs more thought and time and resources?
Chief Escalante, good afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. I think to answer at least a part of that question, one is every year about this time, we have a training manager, a lieutenant, that puts together a training calendar. And our department actually has probably 3 to 4 times the number of required hours by post that we train between the months of September to May. So right now, we're actually just in the process of sitting down to put together that calendar, and this sort of report and document is very helpful for our professional standards sergeant to sit down with the training commander and discuss the trends or any issues that came out of this latest report and be able to make suggestions to criteria or content that should be covered within our training season. One would be the best way to interact and understand juveniles, right? And I think we have a great organization that interacts with juveniles in a tremendous way within our community, at the schools, but there's always room for improvement there and a better way to understand the differences between the juveniles and adults. So we will definitely look at that, and the timing is just right for us. And did I miss, there's another question.
Your internal process for taking a look at all of the recommendations.
Yeah, and so that is our internal process, in the sense of, I will sit down with my command staff, we will talk about the recommendations, we might even circle back with the auditor to have some more conversation. We might have some debate about the recommendations, we might ask for clarity and different things. It'll be a good conversation. And then internally, we sort of prioritize based off of resources, timelines, all of the things, and staffing to put forward to certain recommendations and try to implement those. And then, like I said, from there, I think we transition into, this is a great opportunity to provide additional training to our staff on some of the things that are highlighted in the report.
This is maybe in the weeds, but I'm just remembering some work we did, you and I did, when I first got on council 5-6 years ago, around trainings for commercially sexually exploited children, CSEC children, and you were gonna work on, I think you did, bring in a module specifically around CSEC, and I'm just curious if that is still there, and if you don't know that right now, I can circle back with you.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look, but I don't have that
That was
off
like
the top of my head.
5-6 years ago, but just, my memory I remember that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Thank you, Chief. Further questions or comments at this point by council members? This will be the opportunity for anyone to address this matter. In the event that we have folks who are online and in council chambers, we'll toggle back and forth. Okay, here's how this works. You start to my left, where the gentleman in the red hat, that's where people line up to speak. So look, you're not in charge of this. I'm in charge of this. Either you speak, you can go queue up. You can go queue up.
Lee Brokaw. I want to commend our auditors for their report, and I observed them at Palo Alto and Santa Clara County Sheriff, and I'm real pleased to have them on our board, on board. I think the one thing that stood out for me in the report was the fact that we have officers that are repeating the same mistakes, and it's not being shared to where it's recognized that the same guys do it, or the same gal is doing the same thing. And I can imagine there's a personnel issue about listing people that have had their issues and privacy, but you just can't have officers making the same mistakes over and over again, especially when they're carrying guns. I would like to offer Michael's YouTube, which if you're interested, you could contact him and get it, on AI and how it works with body cams. And there's a positive and a negative. The positive is that, well, first of all, the AI can review every body cam for every day and be looking for specific things, use of inappropriate language or being kind to little old ladies. And the review is something that no human being is possible to be able to do that. And I see that as a real positive because it allows the police department to see their officers being kind to people and being respectful. And it's for the community, it gives the community an opportunity to see the officer in his worst state. And we don't want officers in their worst state. So I'd recommend that you contact Michael and have him send you the link on AI and body cameras. I think, Chief, you'd find that to be very valuable.
We'll take the person online. Good afternoon, person online. Welcome to the City Council meeting.
Good afternoon. My name is Rhonda Reyna. Boy, I'm really shocked. 5 years after I was strangled in front of my own home, and officers put me in handcuffs and never arrested or prosecuted the man who tried to kill me. It's unbelievable that you guys are still doing a song and dance. I don't think this agency is incompetent. I think Santa Cruz Police Department suffers from deliberate indifference. I handed the evidence over to an investigative journalist. His name is Michael Phillips. He's with Riptide Investigations. You can pull up his stuff on www.riptidereport.com. I urge you to read the report, The Criminalist and the Coerced Plea, because it covers everything that happened to me with Santa Cruz PD, who covered up exonerating information, who did not take 4 witness videos where my neighbors saw that I was being strangled. They did not take into account the 911 calls of witnesses saying that I was being strangled. They did not take into account the body cam footage of me being attacked by my baby daddy. And to this date, my ex remains at large. And what Riptide Report wrote is that under California Penal Code 273.5, is a felony for spousal battery, that under California law, strangulation during a domestic violence incident is an aggravating factor that can elevate a charge to attempted homicide. I have told this city council repeatedly that I want David Murdoch arrested, prosecuted, and to be punished for attempting to kill me. And you have not addressed that issue whatsoever. And Mr. Michael Giannacco, he's just a fraud. He's just a con man. What he's babbling about is trying to get you more federal funding for money laundering, falsely claiming that the agency needs training. You guys don't need training. You're deliberately indifferent. If an investigative journalist can write 6 different reports and go through the evidence and see where all the holes are and see how many police officers fabricated false evidence and ignored that a woman was being murdered in front of her neighbors, that is something that you guys should only be responding to. I'm just beside myself with this because I want consequences. And Ruben Badeo needs a psych exam. He's a cluster B disordered personality. He loves to hurt people. He puts black gloves on. He smashed my daughter's face to the ground. He strangled her. David Didi helped him. She had to go to a restorative dentist. And that is evidence of how injured my child was, who allegedly was needing a protective order. How is it that police officers protect a child by breaking her, and then your mental health liaison kidnapped her and locked her away?
Good afternoon. Welcome to the council meeting.
That is very distressing for the council and the public to have to hear something like that. It's hard to know if that's a reflection on the truth, but I don't think it is in absolute sense. But one does hear those kind of tales elsewhere, so maybe there's more to it than we'd like to admit. I did have a background as a volunteer investigator of allegations of police abuse in this community. Several decades ago, different police chief, different officers. I want to thank Michael, I've forgotten the name, for the reassuring tone he adopted. I think we all need reassurance about these potentially serious matters. On the other hand, I lost that assurance when I heard that sometimes police officers don't put their body cams on. And thank you, Councilwoman, is it Gabriella, for reminding us that in August last year, they were virtually required to always put the cameras on. But I would like to ask, put the question on the floor, if Michael would be willing to answer it. Under what conditions, in the past at least, was an officer not putting their camera on, and what sort of reason did they give for that? It seems to me unbelievable that a responsible officer would not realize it's to his benefit to have a camera on in general. And finally, I have another question. I'd like to know what the power of an advocate is in a hearing of an alleged complaint. Is there any power allocated to somebody from the ACLU, or does it have to be from an organization as an advocate along with the complainant? Can it also be a grassroots volunteer coming forward, that was part of my capacity? I'd like to know the answer to that question, the power of advocates in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone online? Not with their hand up. Next person in line, good afternoon. Welcome to the council meeting.
Yeah, hello, my name is James Ewing Whitman. I was listening to this presentation, Mike. That was a good presentation. I enjoyed it. I think the job of law enforcement has changed significantly since I was a child. I'm almost 60. It seemed like more citizens were interested in being involved and actually making a difference. Seems like, you know, if there were a new picture of the Titanic sinking, all you'd see are people's hands with their smartphones out of the water. They wouldn't really be doing much more than that. I'm trying to find something I want to read, which I thought was, I have no way to validate whether or not it's true. A man in Dubai was arrested for the rape of a 5-year-old child. The public and the victim's family believed that the Dubai police and authorities would ensure he faced prison time for his crime. However, in a surprising announcement, the police declared that he would not serve time in prison. Instead, within 15 minutes, they executed him. We need more of that everywhere. Didn't state whether the child was male or female. So, you know, it's, I think law enforcement has a very difficult task. You know, I didn't read a page of the 35 pages that was actually in here, but I appreciated that after I called my friend Rhonda Reyna, she called and said some things, you know. My understanding, she hasn't been with her child in 5 years. I consider time with my son priceless. I haven't hugged him in over 10 years, so I can understand her kind of state of wrath. You know, I gave you guys something 2 years ago, remedies, both to this council, sheriff's department, police department, and the supervisors. You know, folks really want to get the attention of the elected officials. You go to the clerk with a piece of paper and they're happy to give them that information. But as far as law enforcement's job being difficult, yeah, I think it's really difficult because the people have become quite numb and full of fear. So it's just interesting to see what people's comments were. The truth has nothing on fiction, and it's just great to be a witness here. Thank you.
Anyone else online? Ms. Bush? Good afternoon. Welcome to the council meeting.
I hope you're not getting tired of me. I personally believe that strong communities make police obsolete. We don't need them. And I say that in the way where it's, if we all learn how to take care of our own shit, we wouldn't be trying to put off our things to police who don't care about us at all. Because what they care about is their jobs, their badge, and backing the blue. I don't think that any amount of training or any amount of trying to fix a broken system that was made from slave catchers is ever going to fix the root problem that police shouldn't exist in the first place. But in that sense, when we're talking about the police, I have heard and I have seen multiple abuses of power from the police, and I would love to make a meeting with either of you or both of you.
Okay, I'm going to make it clear. You can testify to us, not to those folks. Look here.
Yes, understood. Thank you. But the officers that have been involved in harassing houseless people throughout the city have gone into Pogonip, destroyed people's property, come back later, called it trash and thrown it away. They have destroyed people's property on the street, on Coral Street, in front of my eyes. I have a photo of an officer holding a knife, cutting a tent that was meant to be saved, put into storage for up to 90 days for them to come retrieve. When we're talking about vulnerable populations, houseless people are one of the most vulnerable populations we can even consider thinking of. And their opinions and their qualms with the system have been systemically silenced, because how can a person without a car drive to the police station? How can a person who needs to spend all day looking for food and shelter and trying to keep themselves safe, how can they put aside hours to file a complaint? I think instead of, or in conjunction with more training, that police need more limitations on what they can and can't do. I think these recommendations should be recommending that police stay out of business that isn't theirs. And I want to express solidarity and apologies to the person online for their story. That sounds terrible. And it's another example of the police care about showing what they see in the moment and not caring about the whole situation. The truth doesn't matter if all you see is what happens right in front of you, because the truth is behind closed doors. It's in our homes. It's a domestic abuse. That's when you see domestic abuse and you criminalize the abused, that's a systemic issue, not a training failure. Thank you.
Matters back before the body. Pleasure of the body. Councilmember Triguero.
I move to accept the report, and if I may, I'd like to make a motion.
There's a motion to accept.
To accept the report and direct police department to evaluate the implementation and population of the Blue Team software.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. You may open on your motion.
I want to thank again our auditors for their report today and to my colleagues for their questions and feedback. We have year over year had a very extensive review from this auditing team who works with several other jurisdictions, including our county, which I know that our chief and PD make efforts to bring alignment to jurisdictions and to our county. I see strong recommendations here that I know that our police chief and his staff will be looking into. And my motion simply highlights the opportunity of the Blue Team software, which is industry standard. Thank you.
Thank you. Further debate or discussion?
Thank you.
Councilmember?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just thank Councilmember Triguero for her motion. And I also just want to frame up some response to public comments. I've had the opportunity to work alongside our sworn officers for many, many years. And I do agree that law enforcement's practices of law enforcement throughout the decades, throughout the centuries, was built around many issues around white supremacy, and how we manage to push back on that in these days is a challenging issue. That all being said, our police department and the men and women that serve in our police departments are our neighbors, are raising children in our schools, are laying out their lives every day for not only our housed community, but our unhoused community. Our unhoused community stands every day as the most vulnerable to crime residents in our community, and they need our officers just as much as anybody else does. So I just wanted to push back on some of the rhetoric in chambers today, and I appreciate the courage and the direct, transparent, and honest feedback, but I also want to humanize our police force. Our children go to school with your children, and you lay down your lives for us every day. So I just wanted to share that appreciation.
Councilmember Golder.
I'd like to kind of echo that sentiment, and I would also say that I had the opportunity, and I know Councilmember Bruner did also, to do the public citizen police academy years ago, and it really gave me an insight into what their day looks like. And I remember just my heart racing, and it was just a scenario, and I would not be able to do that job. And I've had to call law enforcement at times in my life living here in Santa Cruz. I've been victims of a violent crime, and I can't thank them enough for their care and their grace and their bravery that they do day in and day out. And so I really kind of take kind of like a knee-jerk reaction when I hear people kind of villainizing them. It's a really hard job. We have trouble with recruitment and retention, not only here, but statewide and nationwide in law enforcement. And it is something that most people appreciate and everybody relies on when it comes down to it. Because even if you don't like the police, I guarantee you'll call the police if you need them, so.
Further debate or discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Triguero.
Aye. Aye.
Brunner.
Aye.
Newsom.
Aye.
Boulder.
Aye.
O'Hara. Aye. Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Cooley.
Aye, motion passes and so ordered. Let me give folks a sense of how we're going to proceed today. We are now on item 30. We will take up item 30 and 31. We will then take our afternoon break. We will return and take up items 32 and 33. We are now on item 30, a resolution authorizing the application, California Pro Housing Designation Program. We have reports in our packet. Ms. Watkins and Ms. DeWitt will be presenting on this item. Good afternoon to both of you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
And Council. My name is Emily Watkins, Management Analyst in
Excuse me for just a second. Please take the conversations outside. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Emily Watkins, Management Analyst in the city's Affordable Housing Division. I'm joined by Housing Division Manager Jessica DeWitt. We are here today with a brief pro-housing presentation that will highlight application renewal and funding opportunities. Pro-housing is a California Department of Housing and Community Development program that recognizes jurisdictions with housing supportive policies. The designation gives priority processing and/or additional points for select state grants. The designation makes jurisdictions eligible for programs such as PIP, which stands for Pro-Housing Incentive Program. And the designation strengthens competitiveness for housing, infrastructure, transportation, and climate-related funding opportunities. The City of Santa Cruz was awarded a pro-housing designation back in 2023, and it is set to expire on January 1st, 2027. HCD requests a substantial lead time to thoroughly review new applications. With the council action before you today, council is being asked to authorize city staff to submit a new pro-housing application to the state HCD, which will preserve the city's access to state funding incentives. This action does not approve any housing project, change zoning, policies, or development standards, or increase any housing targets or development capacity, or authorize any construction. The city's 2026 draft pro-housing application recognizes existing and previously planned city policies and programs. Out of 58 counties and over 450 municipalities in California, only 74 have an approved pro-housing designation as of April of this year. Santa Cruz is ranked in the top 20 of the awarded jurisdictions with its 2023 app. The pro-housing designation program continues to grow statewide. The city's current pro-housing designation has already helped leverage state funding. The city received a $500,000 PIP award in 2024. The award supports rental assistance and emergency eviction prevention services for eligible lower-income households at risk of eviction. The funding is implemented through the city's partnership with Community Action Board. This is an example of how the designation can translate into direct resources for local housing stability and anti-displacement efforts. Pro-housing allowed the city to apply for another round of PIP funding for a total of $1 million that could support a future affordable housing project if awarded. The city's current pro-housing designation is also referenced in the city's adopted 2023-2031 housing element, and a compliant housing element is required to obtain and maintain a pro-housing designation. The designation also gives the city bonus points to be competitive and successful for ASIC funding. These additional points help improve the competitiveness of affordable housing projects seeking ASIC funding and provide an advantage in close funding decisions, or they can serve as a tiebreaker between similarly ranked applications. Other affordable housing projects in a pro-housing designated city can leverage this too. In addition to the PIP and ASIC programs, you can see here additional state programs where pro-housing designated jurisdictions may receive priority or additional points to competitively score for funding. The ASIC and IIG programs are key to funding not only affordable housing projects, but also city infrastructure projects. The city's proactive efforts to advance housing and seek out programs like the pro-housing designation help position the city to be competitive for these opportunities. So, maintaining the city's pro-housing designation helps preserve competitiveness for future opportunities that support not only housing, but also infrastructure and transportation projects throughout the community. The city's pro-housing application is truly a collaborative effort that draws upon policies, programs, and accomplishments from multiple divisions and departments across the city of Santa Cruz. So with that, I'll conclude with the recommendation from the staff report. Motion to adopt a resolution to apply for a new pro-housing designation from the California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, and authorize the Director of Community Development to execute and deliver the application and any related program documents required for participation in the pro-housing designation program. This concludes the presentation. Thank you all for your time and consideration.
Well, thank you for that presentation. Let me see if there are questions or comments by council members. Councilmember Golder and then the Vice Mayor.
I do have one question. Thank you, Jessica and Emily, for the presentation. But my question is, this is a question that comes to me often from the public, is why do we want this designation? And why don't we just tell developers, oh, you can't build? Like, isn't there enough building? Why? And I know the answer, so I'm asking for, I don't see Lookout or anybody here, but hopefully you guys are watching online and you'll report this in your paper.
So it not only provides affordable housing in our community, this designation allows for us to access funding that supports people who need emergency rental assistance, or for infrastructure projects, or for climate change efforts. So there's multiple departments across the city that have been able to access this pro-housing designation to be awarded funding to do much needed projects in the city.
Mr. Butler, good afternoon.
Thank you, Mayor and Council Members. Lee Butler, Community Development Director, and I'd echo the comments that Jessica said. Another big benefit of this is Emily mentioned the housing element, and we're required to certify our housing element every 8 years, and that's a really big effort. And when we have that pro-housing determination, we're starting off on the right foot with the Department of Housing and Community Development. The Housing and Community Development Department of the state is the one that has to ultimately approve and certify our housing element. And by having that pro-housing designation, we're showing them we're already taking steps towards the efforts in preservation of housing and production of housing and protection of tenants. And all of that factors into our pro-housing application and improves that relationship with the state so that we can have a smoother process. Council will recall we're the only city or county in the Tri-County region that certified our housing element on time. And part of that was because we had our pro-housing designation as a great starting point and as a great relationship builder with the state.
Thank you. Further questions, comments? Vice Mayor is recognized.
Thank you. Councilmember Golder asked it better than I ever could, but I do want to just acknowledge the amount of work that goes into these applications. You know, scoring in the last round, scoring the highest out of the 30 recognized jurisdictions in the state, that's huge. $500,000 to go towards rental assistance to help our low-income residents, that's huge. These are really great accomplishments that I'm really proud of, and I think we should all be proud of. So thank you for the great work.
Thank you. Councilmember Bruner is recognized.
Thank you. Can you just speak briefly to the new requirements for this year's pro-housing designation application?
Yes. So there's several different categories. I guess probably the easiest way to give you buckets is some of them is how can you streamline permitting applications coming through that support housing? Others are you providing funding sources? And if so, how? Other ones are zoning. So how can you improve your zoning, again, to make it easier to have more housing built in your community?
I can add a little too. There were changes to the program in 2024. So as of January 2024, the HCD introduced additional program thresholds in response to stakeholder feedback, including public participation and homeless encampment requirements. So that was new. And let's see, minor adjustments were made to scoring criteria and to clarifying monitoring and revoking procedures. To assist applicants with new requirements, HCD has developed several pre-approved templates on how to conduct a diligent public participation process and implement best practices to assist persons experiencing homelessness on public encampments. And they made those templates available on their website.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And in the staff report, it was noted that staff and is confident that we can meet, and I didn't finish reading through the entire draft application, but meeting all of those new changes. So thank you, and I really support the pro-housing designation. It's been such a great incentive for us to receive priority funding and to fund programs that support people who, especially our low-income community, and to really have those incentives and grants and to meet our local housing needs. And thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Further questions, comments? This will be the opportunity for anyone who wishes to provide comment on this item to do so. Good afternoon.
Yeah, hello, my name is James Ewing Whitman. I'm commenting on number 30, proposed resolution authorizing application for the California Pro Housing Designation Program. It's my understanding I was right. It's a $500,000 grant. I think that's great. You know, when you look at all of the coffins, all those big 5-6-story buildings, they're coffins to me, and I could explain why. What's the tenancy in there, you know? I can tell you the tenancy at a property that Boardwalk Management owns, 314 Jesse Street, it's got full tenancy. And with all of the subsidies, they're making at least $150,000 a month off the subsidies. So I think that it's just useful that this is available to people. It wasn't quite clear to me who it's available for. I think some of the terminology to determine who is available for this stuff, when people mention climate change, I'm just simply reminded of the digital ID Internet of Things, which would be digital idiot. I didn't make that up, someone else did, you know. So I'll be brief on that. It's just kind of interesting as to what the city is and isn't doing for the people. Thank you.
Anyone else? Do we have anyone online? Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I wasn't going to make a comment, but I heard one word from Ms. DeWitt. I'm sorry if I got who said it incorrectly. It was about new procedures for applying this year, and one of them was streamlining. And there was no other content except that. So far, streamlining usually goes along with getting rid of public hearings. So I'd just ask if there could be some clarification as does that. If you're applying for this and you want to show that you are interested in streamlining, does that go along with removing public hearings as a commitment to applying for this award? Thank you.
Ms. DeWitt, on the question.
So this application doesn't change any procedure that is currently existing at the city. So we're just mirroring what is already going on at the city and listing it in our application to get points. So there's no change.
Thank you, Ms. DeWitt. Further testimony? Anyone else online? Matters back before the body. Pleasure of the body. Councilmember Brunner is recognized.
I'd like to move agenda item 30, proposed resolution authorizing application for the California Pro Housing Designation Program.
There is a motion. Is there a second? Vice Mayor?
I'll second.
Vice Mayor seconds. You may open on your motion.
I just wanted to say great work. It's been stated that out of the entire state, Santa Cruz, the city of Santa Cruz has received top score, and we have really benefited from this designation. And I just hope that our community can see that and that we continue to share all that good work out. And I know that some of the families that are living in some of the new low-income housing that was able to be built through funds, through having pro housing designation. All of these new low-income homes are full of families that are able to live in affordable housing where rent is a percentage of their income. So thank you for going and doing the work again to reapply. And I know a lot goes into it. This is a really quick overview. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Further debate or discussion? A couple of things. One, thank you so much for this. When the Vice Mayor and I were on the agenda committee meeting last week with the city manager and the city attorney and so on, this item was here, and we decided, my goodness, this is such a really wonderful accomplishment by the city that we wanted to put it on the regular agenda rather than consent, to give you the opportunity and the community the opportunity to see what it is we're doing here. We are under, of course, enormous pressure from the state of California to continue to build a very significant amount of housing. And as a part of that, we can choose to do those things which position us to be better able to bring some of our state tax dollars back into our community for a variety of purposes around housing, much of which has to do with addressing the access to housing by low-income individuals. And this, I think, is I don't think it, I know it is factually true. This, as you've pointed out, enhances our position over probably 400 other cities and probably 52 other counties when we all apply for the same money in the state of California. And again, this isn't somebody else's tax dollars. This is the tax dollars our residents pay to the state of California, and by getting this designation, we get a better opportunity to bring that money back and have it make sense in Santa Cruz. The other thing I want to mention on this pro housing designation is the way I see it. And I think people can see it differently. The way I see it, it is a way to demonstrate, even though our community is of a mixed mind, about housing development. We have been for decades. And we are now under a different state regime with regard to statutory obligations. We don't get to make the choices we used to get to make. We have an obligatory responsibility now with regard to building housing. And I think a way to respond to the community's concerns around, gee, who is getting this housing? Who are we building this for? And I know that Mr. Butler and I have talked, Ms. Lipscomb and I have talked about this. And I think one of the underreported stories, and I believe that this is one of the reasons we have a pro-housing designation, is that the vast majority of what is being built these days in the city of Santa Cruz fits in the state and federal definitions of being affordable. There's market rate, and then there's 4 categories of affordability. And perhaps Mr. Butler or someone will remind me what that number is, but it is the vast majority, as I understand it, of what we have been building in the last few years. We can have debates about whether it's pretty or not pretty, and I won't want to engage in that because I'm pretty much on the not pretty side, but that's a different question. And we've lost that authority as I see it. But meeting our obligations on the RENA requirements, I am interested in you giving us a sense of all that housing that is being built, how much of it fits in the state and federal definitions of affordable?
I appreciate the opportunity to share that information again, Mayor, because in the last 2.5 years, when you look at our RENA reporting targets, our regional housing needs allocation, we have issued building permits for 1,027 units. And of that, over 890 have been affordable, so 87% of those. I will put one caveat, and that is we were not able to count 99 of the units that were student housing units at the Delaware Addition. So that still puts us at 1,126 units, over 890, 79% of the units that we have constructed, which is just a phenomenal number. And the pro-housing designation is an important component of that. When, as you mentioned, these are very competitive grant applications, and getting a point or 2 points can make the difference between not getting funding and that funding going to some other city or some other county and it coming to us. And we've been very successful both internally with our housing team, applying for a number of the projects that we as a city are leading and getting grants on those, Pacific Station South, Pacific Station North, the Library Affordable Housing Project. We've also been proactive in loaning money to organizations like nonprofit developer at the former Outdoor World site on River Street. We loaned them the money. They're now constructing 50 affordable housing units there. And so our nonprofit partners have been successful, our city team has been successful, and the pro-housing designation is an important component of that.
Thank you. As the legislature and the governor are continuing to work literally at this hour on forging an affordable housing general obligation bond measure for the November 2026 ballot, my sense is that those who are in the position we are in with regard to pro-housing designations are going to find that that is very worthwhile when we then compete, assuming a fact not in evidence, which is that the voters approve it. I don't think there's much question of that. It's a majority vote statewide. That we have now positioned ourselves as, I wish the state, when I was in the legislature, I said this, and I continue to say it, I wish the state would, every 6 years, put an affordable housing GO bond on the ballot. There is no schedule for doing any of that. It's whenever the governor and legislature decide to do it. But we haven't done it in more than a few years in a meaningful way. And I think that what you have done and helped us do with regard to the adoption of policy in this area is going to be very helpful when I do believe the voters will approve an affordable housing measure. I also want to thank Ms. Lipscomb, who pointed out to me a week or so ago that it would be helpful if we contacted our very effective California State Senator John Laird to get a particular category of funding enhanced in that bond measure, which we've availed ourselves of that year after year, that has done some very remarkable things. And I'm pleased to report that the senator was able to enhance that number by quite a bit. And I'm very thankful to Senator Laird for having done that. Thank you all very much for the fine work, and the clerk will call the roll. Please, go ahead.
I just had one question that came up. I had a question. Did you just say, Director, that the Delaware Edition had 99 units that don't count because they're student housing? I thought they had kitchens in all those units when we toured it.
That's correct, and that is correct. So the faculty and staff housing, there's 62 units. Of those 161 units, 62 of them do count towards our RENA totals. The others, because they have a 30-year lease for specifically to students, those do not count towards our RENA targets.
And the other ones that probably won't count are the senior living facility that's going to be down by the former Gateway School by St. Joseph's.
You're correct on Pelton. That project, we were able to count 10 or 12 of those units because of the way that they are functioning, but there are 70 or so units that we cannot count. There is a state bill going through the legislature right now that would allow cities to count those units, those memory care and assisted living units in the 7th cycle, which for us begins in 2032. I have lobbied to include the current cycle as part of that, including retroactively, but whether or not that gains any traction is yet to be seen.
I mean, I think it's something we should consider reaching out to our state legislators and our lobbyists. That it seems like between the senior housing, the housing that also doesn't count is what's being built at Housing Matters, correct?
The Housing Matters does count.
The new,
yes.
The
120 permanent supportive housing units are in here, and they're actually at the very low and extremely low income level, even though they aren't all deed restricted at that level because they have committed to providing them at those levels.
Well, I think to the extent possible that we can reach out and lobby for something like this, it would definitely be a benefit to the community because we have an increasing population at UCSC and we have an increasing senior population. I think we have one of the largest senior populations in this county across the state of aging seniors. So we're going to need more senior housing. And I'll be 50 next year, and then
whatever.
And then we want that housing to be counted as well, because as soon as somebody moves out of a single family home and into, well, I'm looking forward to moving into some sort of retirement village someday, and someone can have my house. So it helps with the cycles, and so I think to the extent we can encourage that, because our community really does have big populations of seniors and youths, and it should count. That's my final thought, sorry.
I love you. Clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Triguero.
Aye.
Bruner.
Aye.
Newsom.
Aye.
Holder.
Aye.
O'Hara.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Cooley.
Aye, motion passes as so ordered. Item 31, and then we will take a recess after item 31. These are two resolutions which would order an election on November 3rd, 2026 to add some charter amendments and a mayoral election. Ms. Bush, you have done such great work on getting these largely technical amendments to and cleanup items on our city charter, and we really appreciate your fine work on that. And would you like to open on this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Really quick, it's pretty self-explanatory. In terms of the ballot measures, this is the third and final required public meeting that we need to have, and it's to call the election. Specifically, the ballot measure was presented as one whole item. It has since been changed to split into 4 for clarity for the voters to not be overwhelming. I can also turn to the city attorney to clarify that further. The other resolution is to call an election on the mayoral election under the assumption that a runoff will be needed. The deadline didn't coincide with the August break or the July break. So
so we are preemptively adopting this resolution.
Well, thank you for looking ahead and seeing ahead. Appreciate that. Madam City Attorney.
Sure, just a quick word on the charter item. As I've been thinking about this item over the past couple of months, there is a rule in our California Constitution called the single subject rule. And the idea is any ballot measure should really address a single subject. And so it's debatable whether or not we could have put all of these into one ballot measure. But, the last thing we want to do is be in court on some sort of technical charter amendments. So my recommendation would be to split it up into the 4 measures, the 4 different categories that are described in the resolution that was included in your agenda materials.
Thank you for that. Let me see if there are any questions, comments by members. Let me go out to the public. This be your opportunity on this item. We have anyone online?
No,
Matters back before the body. Pleasure of the body. Councilmember O'Hara is recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move to reject a resolution ordering an election to be held on November 3rd, 2026 for the purpose of submitting to the voters for 4 measures to amend the city charter, and to adopt a resolution ordering an election to be held on November 3rd, 2026 for the purpose of submitting to the voters the 2 mayoral candidates who received the most votes in the June 2nd, 2026 primary election.
There is a motion. I want to make sure I did not track your first item. Will you just do that one more time?
Yes. The first motion is to reject a resolution ordering an election to be held on November 3rd, 2026 for the purpose of submitting to the voters 4 measures to amend the city charter.
There's a motion. There's a second. Second is by, help me here.
I'll second.
Okay. And Ms. Bush, I just have a question. That is the direction you're looking for on this?
Well, no, I was looking for it to be adopted, but it'll work, yeah.
Councilmember O'Hara.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to probably without a lot of grace walk through this, which I understand that there might be some confusion about how this motion has been crafted. So our city charter is the constitution of this city. It is how we run each and every day. It is the laws that govern how we operate as a city, from down to how we run elections, to how we hire and where our city manager resides. It is the legal framework for how our city operates. And as the mayor mentioned, we have gone through an exceedingly robust process to determine what amendments are necessary and required to ensure that our city is in compliance with current state and national law, with current case law, as the city attorney just mentioned even now, how we would even move this forward in a way that is legal and grounded and the lowest risk of litigation as we ask our voters to consider these amendments. We have had a number of recent conversations come from the community with questions that are in the charter amendment. I can personally say, and I think probably the seconder of the motion also can personally say, that each and every one of these amendments is grounded in important administrative, operational, legal, clerical updates to ensure that our charter truly represents how this city should be run, changes in ensuring that we have gender-neutral language, changes to where, for instance, our city manager resides. All of these must be done. I don't believe they must be done right now. And for our benefit, I think it makes sense for us to take a beat and address some of the questions that have arisen on some of the amendments, not all of them, on some of the amendments, to ensure that we all feel comfortable in putting this on the ballot and for our voters to vote for this with confidence. I don't think we need to do this right now. I think it's in the best interest of our council to wait, especially during what might be a very contentious campaign season. This charter amendment is critical for us to move forward with. I don't think we want to run the risk of this charter amendment being mired in political fighting that might be happening during this campaign season. So that is the reason why I'm moving forward with slowing down on the charter amendment and moving forward with a mayoral election.
Further debate or discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Triguero.
Aye.
Brunner.
Did we have public comment?
Yeah.
Aye.
Newsom.
Aye.
Boulder.
Aye.
O'Hara. Aye. Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson. Aye. And Mayor Cooley.
Aye. We are going to take our afternoon recess at this point. I'm going to say that it is 3:25. We will come back at 3:40 to take up the remaining two items. We will stand in recess until that time. Santa Cruz City Council has completed its afternoon recess and is back in session, and a quorum continues to be present. We are on item number 32. This is an ordinance amending the Santa Cruz Municipal Code section 1.18.020 to adjust the salaries of the mayor and members of the city council. Council members O'Hara and Kalantari Johnson have spent more than a small amount of time working on this, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mayor. So the item before us, as the mayor said, is to consider amending Municipal Code Section 1.18.020 to adjust the council and mayoral salaries and to revisit it annually during the budget process. Just for a little bit of background and context, which is in the agenda report, the previous council passed an ordinance in 2009 to adjust its compensation. However, previous council acted outside of a formal ordinance process to delay receiving that compensation adjustment. So the last adjustment that was fully implemented was in June of 2017, 9 years ago. Of course, all of us know that cost of living in Santa Cruz has risen sharply in those 9 years. As a council and as a city agency, we have supported COLAs for city staff at every level over the same period, including doing the 2021 compensation study and recent labor negotiations. The city has not done so for the city council. So what's before us, and the charter allows up to 5% annual increase from the last adjustment rate. So what's before us is a conservative approach, calculating from the June 2017 adjustment date when it was actually implemented, rather than the 2009 date when the ordinance was passed. The proposal is to increase council pay to $2,653.31 per month, and mayoral pay to $5,306.60 per month. And I'll just briefly touch on why this is important and pass it on to Councilmember O'Hara. Equitable compensation at all levels of the city team is really important. Equitable compensation for city council members, when there isn't equitable compensation, can be a barrier. Representation really matters. And so we want to ensure that that compensation isn't the barrier that's keeping folks from running and wanting to serve in this capacity. I'll pass it to Councilmember O'Hara to add to that.
Councilmember O'Hara.
Thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor. I want to start by saying this is a challenging position for all of us to sit in. It's not many bodies that make their own decisions on their compensation. Usually that happens at a body above you based on performance, a manager, a supervisor, a process. So I understand and empathize with, it's kind of a little bit of a uncomfortable position for us to all be in. I was elected, I guess now, a year and a half ago, and just a few weeks after I was elected, I got a text from Micah Posner, previous council member Micah Posner, who my kids went to preschool with. And so we've had a long history of raising kids and kind of moving in and out of each other's lives in Santa Cruz. And he made a pitch. Could you please consider council compensation? And, I obviously heard his pitch and have thought about it and been engaging with our city attorney and our city manager and our staff around timing of this, around level of compensation, and how best to proceed on moving in this direction. And I will not repeat what the vice mayor shared, other than to say, I wholeheartedly believe that each and every one of us needs to kind of step out of our current roles here, sitting and presiding over this body, and think about future council members and folks who might be interested in running but simply cannot make it happen. You have to be very privileged to sit in this space. Most of us have long-term housing security, not all of us, but most of us. Most of us have probably pretty high-paying second jobs or are retired. Historically, council has been represented by mostly West Siders, mostly retired folks, mostly folks that can do this job for little or no pay. That is not who we ultimately want representing the city moving forward. And so we did take a very modest approach. It might not feel modest because there are almost 10 years of time that we have not seen any compensation increase. But what I want to tell you is, because of who I am, being an engineer and focused on numbers, I ran the numbers against CPI, what we would be getting if we just thought about CPI. It's about 5% within the order of magnitude of what we're recommending. And then I also went back and looked at COLAs that our bargaining units have gotten year by year, exactly the same outcome. So this is a COLA. This is not a pay increase based on performance. This is a COLA, and quite frankly, it's very modest. So we really do hope that incentivizes more folks to think about running for council, for folks that are trying to balance another part-time job or even another full-time job. We really do hope that makes a difference, and I really appreciate Micah and others who have, really been talking about this for a very long time and did not get a very strong positive response with previous councils. So I look forward to any further discussion and appreciate the Vice Mayor for supporting this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me see if there are other opening comments by members. Councilmember Golder.
Yeah, having been on this council now, I think the longest of all of you, I guess, yes, of all of you, I definitely opposed this at first. I felt like the reason I'm doing this work is because of my love of the community, and I did not want, and I think people appreciate that we're not necessarily, no offense, career politicians, that we are part of the community, and so, yeah.
No offense.
But in the 2 years I spent trying to find a candidate to replace me, I couldn't find anybody. And it wasn't necessarily about the compensation, but in a way it was, because, I'm lucky. I have 2 incomes, my husband and I. Not everybody has 2 incomes for their family. The other barrier I thought was when we used to have 18-hour, 12-hour meetings, I would have to take a full day off work for those meetings. And so the length of the meetings and the effectiveness of the council determines, how much you make per hour, I suppose, if you think about it that way. And then during the recent mayoral campaign, I really came to acquiesce that compensation matters, because we had Ms. Greenside, who's retired, we had Ryan, who works, and the other candidates were independently wealthy and just able to be on the campaign trail. And I think our community expects a diverse council and for us to be able to, just like the police department, recruit and encourage folks to represent us. The littlest bit of compensation can certainly help with that. So once again, the vice mayor and I sometimes see opposite 180 on issues. This is one where she pulled me to her side. I completely agree. I was wrong, she's right. This is something that's better for the community.
Mark your calendars, folks.
Other comments? Councilmember Brenner?
Thank you. I think the timing of this is a long time in the making. And I know that in the past, this body has directed a compensation study across other councils in neighboring cities and jurisdictions as just a comparison. And it's really interesting to see because we do think of ourselves as public servants and serving our community. And however, the biggest thing that we try, and at least I speak for myself, is in our decisions, in our policies, initiatives moving forward, it's for the next generations, it's for the future, and this is not self-serving at all. It's for all the people who would be wonderful candidates in our neighborhoods who are actively engaged, maybe sitting on some of our commissions, and really this has been an obstacle for a lot of good potential people to serve our community in this capacity. And so really giving it the comparison and the thought, and I appreciate Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson and Councilmember O'Hara diving deeper into this and running the numbers and the data to come up, and working with the city attorney's office and city manager to present this proposed ordinance for amending our council compensation. I think it is reasonable, and I think that for future candidates, this will be one less barrier. And I say that as, it has changed over time, and many people are by necessity working not just one job, 2 jobs, sometimes 3 jobs to live here. And our service is not just in these meetings. We are appointed to many boards and commissions internally in the city as well as externally. And those are monthly, quarterly. Those are also time meetings, reading through agenda reports, meetings with staff, meetings with neighbors. All of that is time that we all gladly do and serve, but that means you're not working at your work, and so taking time off or having to adjust your schedule, it shouldn't be like, can I make rent or food, groceries, because I want to serve on council, but I can't afford it. So I just think it's one more obstacle, and thank you for presenting this. Thank you.
Councilmember Trujillo.
Thank you. And thanks to my colleagues for their work in putting this together. When I ran in my campaign, at the time that I ran, I was paying between 65 and 68% of my income on rent, which made it really difficult for me as a single working mom without child support or good health insurance at that point to literally manage in the pandemic. So when I did run for this, one of my biggest incentives in running was not just scaling my public service, because I was a commissioner then, it was the appeal of becoming essentially a dual income household on my own by getting 2 jobs. And it's a full package of it for me, right? I think the value of my health insurance for me and my dependent, because I get similar health insurance to our city workers, is a part of that compensation and a true blessing. Nonetheless, based on the numbers I just gave you, you can guess that this shift in the compensation is going to vastly change my ability to provide and manage my own budget. And so it really does bring me back to my campaign when I talked about working families. My hope is that people have seen what I talk about and what my council members are encouraging here as a way for more people who are renters and who have walked different paths in life to come forward and want to be part of this process. That the process is not for just people who can afford it, but now in the next iteration will be available to more and more people. And again, on a personal level too, I want to thank city attorney, city manager, my colleagues for being really kind to me when I wasn't sure if I could stay on council, because housing insecurity continues for me. And it's meaningful to hear from the candidates who are running for mayor and who have been running for mayor and other elected offices, even talk about what compensation means to them. You know, we had a young kid, a UCSC kid in this last campaign who ran. And I think that really inspired a lot of young people around town to think, oh, what would it be like to have younger voices on council? And as we shift forward, one of the things that I think about so much in the last couple of months is who our next mayor is going to be. All of us are thinking about that. And I know that we have been so blessed with our first four-year mayor being Fred Keeley. And you have ushered in something that I don't know another mayor could have done. And it is a beautiful capstone on an amazing career and a real gift to this community that will continue in its legacy. And so for me, if I'm not able to continue my full term, I'm really thankful we're doing this, and I'm thankful that I got to serve with all of you.
Anybody with us wish to make comment on this item? This would be your opportunity to do so.
Yeah, hello, my name is James Ewing Whitman. I will say that it has actually been a blessing for me to be a witness and learn so much from you, Mr. Keeley, because I will say that you are probably the best male public speaker that I have been in front of. In this next sentence, I can say I probably disagree with 96% of what you're supporting, but I appreciate how you do it. And it is a sincere compliment.
I took it that way. Thank you.
You should.
Thank you.
You should. You really should, because I mean that. Now, it's interesting to listen to all the proceedings today and try to stay on subject. And I'm thinking of a public speaker in San Diego. Her first name is Audrey. She has said some things that I haven't said yet. I know you can probably get away with more as a woman than a man. So I suppose to keep it clean, we'll see if I can keep it clean. I left here so irritated about 9 months ago that I went to my favorite watering hole and I kind of mentioned my thoughts. And a new acquaintance, he had a comeback after listening to what I said that was probably 1,000th as grotesque as what I had said. I'm not quite so sure if I should say either. We'll say that I was planning on running, 3 minutes, wow, I got a lot of time. I was planning for running for office in this county in 2026. And if I hadn't had something that ended up being a serious health condition that I am recovering from, I would have been running for office. And that office for 1789 could arrest a sitting president. I personally really enjoy Chris Clark, really enjoy Jim Hart as well. Had many fun conversations with both of them. about 2 years ago, Chris Clark came up and just talked to me. I was parked somewhere, and he thanked me for engaging with them and doing something. And I'm like, I appreciate that, but would you please tell me what you're talking about? And it was some standoff with the volunteers, and I was just an observer there. They were not paying attention to what the 5 law enforcement were saying. And all I did was pick up as many beer bottles as I could with 2 hands, and I had to make 2 trips, and they left till 2:30 in the morning, and it was late afternoon when this started. And I said, unfortunately, they've only gotten dumber. It's amazing how many people used to show up 7 years ago. Maybe these meetings could start later in the day. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. We have anyone online? We'll take the first person online. Good afternoon. Welcome to the council meeting.
Good afternoon, Mayor. This is Rhonda Rena again. Let's see. I hear 2 truths and a lie. I hear a lot of Agenda 2030 script reading, and I see many of you are career politicians, and it would be nice to see you step aside and let us little normal folks have a seat at the table. I've read the Constitution, and it's very clear that we are supposed to be under a limited government, and it's supposed to be volunteer. I attend these meetings and more in multiple counties, and I don't get paid. And I attend these meetings on my own time. I read the agendas and respond for free when I can. As all of you know by my complaint filed on the Santa Cruz Police Department and my federal lawsuit against all of you, I'm a broke domestic violence victim. I'm in debt $30,000. I lost my home. I lost everything because of what I suffered at the hands of a narcissist who tried to kill me in front of my own home and who paid many people to strangle and kidnap my daughter. But I still show up because it's my duty as one of the people in California and America to show up. I see Keller Harney Johnson and Goldberg there, who didn't seem to care that my daughter was strangled and had her teeth smashed and that she was taken away from me by force over 5 years ago. I know many domestic violence victims in Santa Cruz who don't receive a dime of all the billions of dollars of wasted government spending built from the taxpayers. For the record, I object to you guys giving yourselves any kind of raises. I think you've served way too long there, again, as career politicians. And to the comment about Fred Keeley's capstone, well, that's interesting because it's a Freemason term. So this tells all of us that you serve the controllers, and it really does sound like some of you are struggling to read the scripts that have been given to you to pass the funding to take more taxes and stuff. And I don't see any real care for the community or people, as can be seen by my case that is reported at riptidereports.com in multiple reports by an independent investigative journalist. And of course, with all the numbers of DV victims in Santa Cruz County. And the homelessness, well, that was an engineered problem. All of you know it. I know it. You know I know it. So for the record, I fully object. I'm done.
Anyone else online? Matters back before the body. Pleasure of the body. Councilmember O'Hara is recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move to introduce for publication the proposed ordinance to adjust the salaries of the mayor and council members and direct staff to annually at or around the same time as the city council's budget hearings or budget adoption prepare a proposed ordinance for city council consideration that would adjust the salaries of the mayor and council members.
There's a motion. There is a second by the vice mayor. You may open on your motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we've had a really productive and good conversation about this. The only thing that I would add is as we went around the dais here, the humanity of each and every one of us shines through, and the concept of public servant. If we are all serving here today and for the rest of our terms, with the level of passion, commitment, and honor for this role as we have, there's no compensation that is high enough. This is very nominal. I do believe it will lower some barriers for folks. And I just want to express my appreciation for our colleagues to find places to express themselves with vulnerability. It demonstrates not only a commitment, but it demonstrates the exact thing we are trying to achieve, which is that we come to these seats and into these positions with our hearts on our sleeve, and we think through hard issues. And I really appreciate everybody's comments today. And I look forward to continuing to serve with you with a minor adjustment to our salary. Thank you.
Further debate or discussion? A couple of quick comments. One, Councilmember O'Hara and Madam Vice Mayor, thank you very much for bringing this forward. Very, very much appreciate it. I think there's two things that have been really good for our city in terms of the democracy. One of them is moving to district elections. And when you represent 60,000 people and have to run citywide, that takes a lot of people out of play, seems to me. And, I get it. You got a mayor's race, it's citywide, that makes sense. But I think it's really been helpful to have 10,000 person districts. That's 10,000 people. You get down to the number of registered voters and so on. I mean, you're really getting down to a situation where I think folks can walk the district 2 or 3 times during a campaign. Doesn't cost them $20,000 to print all the literature and do everything. You can really take those costs of campaigning way down, which just in terms of who would even think about running, it's now a manageable, I think, human scale enterprise. And when we then, on what you're recommending here, to also boost up the compensation for those who may not even consider it, I think those two together are really wonderful democratic reforms that are going to help our city a lot. Madam City Clerk, will you put up my amendment real quickly? City Clerk has a very small amendment, basically what it'll do, and I'm wondering if you would take it by way of a friendly amendment, is that it simply amends the language on the mayor, that increase in compensation would take place upon the swearing in of the new mayor. So I believe Ms. Bush has that language. And Madam City Attorney, you have provided that as I understand it. So what you've recommended on the council stays the way it is, and would simply change the effective date of an increase for the mayor to make it when the next mayor is sworn in. That be agreeable as a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Thank you. Madam Vice Mayor, okay with you? Yes. Thank you both very much. All right, unless there is further debate or discussion, clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Triguero.
Aye.
Bruner.
Aye.
Newsom.
Aye.
Boulder.
Aye.
O'Hara. Aye. Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson. Aye. Mayor Keeley.
Aye. Motion passes and so ordered. This will be back before us for additional readings and so on. Thank you very much for your good work on that. We're on to item 33. And this is brought to us by the Department of Community Development. It is a land use item relative to 201 Front Street in Santa Cruz. It has demolition permits and building items and all manner of matters related to a large project. We will receive a staff report from Mr. Bain, and we have, shall we say, considerable information in our packet. Mr. Bain, good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Excuse me. Let's see. So the project site is a single parcel located south of Laurel Street and north of Spruce Street, spanning between Pacific Avenue and Front Street. The subject property is located in the Central Business District and the south of Laurel area of the downtown plan. So the project proposes to demolish the existing commercial building to construct an 8-story mixed-use building consisting of approximately 12,000 square feet of ground floor retail, 2-story live-work units along Laurel Street frontage, and 1 level of underground parking, and 245 residential units above the first floor. So the parcel has a general plan use designation of RVC, which stands for Regional Visitor Commercial, which applies to areas that emphasize a variety of commercial uses that serve Santa Cruz residents and visitors. Mixed-use development, such as the one proposed, is strongly encouraged in these RVC districts. As mentioned, the site is also located within the recently adopted South of Laurel, or SOLA, of the downtown plan. It is consistent with the downtown plan, which calls for the intensification of the South of Laurel area, as well as a mixed-use district, active public-oriented retail, restaurant, entertainment, and cultural uses, and upper-level residential uses as a primary support to the ground-level retail uses. The objectives of the South of Laurel area is to increase the total number of housing units that can be built in the city by adding capacity for multifamily housing, better connect downtown with the San Lorenzo River and beach areas, and create new economic opportunities for local businesses and workers. So as proposed, the project meets these objectives and is consistent with the city's general plan. Located in the South of Laurel area of the downtown plan, the project is eligible to use the downtown density bonus to pursue development incentives for additional height and or floor area ratio for buildings meeting certain criteria. Excuse me. So the purpose of the downtown density bonus is to support a compact urban core while achieving a higher than average rate of below market rate housing units, promoting high quality design, and generally encouraging building heights of 12 stories or less. So in order to qualify for the downtown density bonus, the project must meet certain criteria. And as listed here, you can see that it has to have mixed-use rental housing, which it does, 2/3 residential with ground floor commercial, also meets that criteria, meets development standards for the Architectural Review Committee review and recommended design variations, and meets below market rate requirements. So the project has been reviewed and meets all of these listed criteria. So once it's determined that the project meets the criteria for the downtown density bonus, the section lays out two density bonus options to choose from, an option A and an option B. So for this project, excuse me, the applicants have chosen option B, which allows for unlimited FAR for development proposals that limit height to the height limits of the downtown plan. And so for this specific area and this specific site, the height limit is 85 feet to the top plate, which that project is consistent with. So the 201 Front Street project proposes to utilize the combination option described in section K14B45 of the downtown plan to meet the inclusionary requirements, which allows for a combination of qualification options to be approved by the City Council based upon the favorable recommendations of the Directors of Community Development and Economic Development, if the council finds that the combination of approaches provides an equivalent or greater affordable housing benefit to the community. Prior to a submittal of a formal application, thank you, the applicant informed the city that they had partnered with CRP, Affordable Housing and Community Development, to facilitate concurrent development of 100% affordable housing development at the properties located at 407 Pacific Avenue, just down the street, to fulfill the affordable housing requirements for the subject downtown density bonus development. So the applicant proposes a plan under the combination option that would more closely resemble the land dedication option with a framework that reflects the obligations and private agreements that have already been established between the two parties. Specifically, that CRP is responsible for acquiring, financing, constructing, and operating the 407 Pacific project, with 201 Front agreeing to pay CRP for the purchase price of the land in order to zero out CRP's land basis. So the 100% affordable housing project at 407 Pacific was approved by the Planning Commission on April 16th of this year, and includes 102 unit development with 96,714 square feet of total dwelling unit area. So this area exceeds the required affordable dwelling unit area for the 201 Front Street project. The proposed combination option includes a plan to enter into a project-specific affordable housing development agreement between the city and the applicant, which will specify the process for holding the money slated for the 407 Pacific project should the timing of the two projects not align. So in regards to entitlements, the project involves a non-residential demolition authorization permit to demolish the existing commercial building, heritage tree removal for the removal of 16 heritage street trees, a coastal permit as it's in the coastal zone, and a design permit for the mixed-use development, and an administrative use permit for live-work quarters in the central business district. So the Planning Commission heard the item on June 4th of this year, and after comments and discussion amongst the commissioners, the commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of the project to the City Council, and there were no amendments that were made to the recommended conditions of approval. Following that Planning Commission approval, staff is recommending 3 conditions of approval be added. Thank you. The first is to address the Front Street elevation, which is made up of mostly back of house uses by incorporating art to improve the frontage. The second is a condition that addresses the long-term exterior maintenance of the project. And the third is a requirement of the downtown plan for the South of Laurel area, requiring a subcommittee of the Planning Commission to approve exterior materials as part of the building plan check process. So the applicants have reviewed the suggested added language and conditions of approval and indicated that it's acceptable to them. Did I not move the slide forward? I apologize. These are the conditions that I was just describing. So in terms of recommendation, recommend that the council make a motion to adopt the resolution acknowledging the environmental determination and approval of the non-residential demolition authorization permit, coastal permit, design permit, administrative use permit, heritage tree removal permit, and downtown density bonus request based on the findings listed in the draft resolution and the conditions of approval that were attached to that resolution. I'm available for any questions.
Mr. Bean, thank you very much. Let me see if there are questions by council members. Councilmember Newsom is recognized.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Bain, for the presentation. I do want to note the purpose of the downtown density bonus is to keep the projects at 8 stories or less. I do have a question for the project applicant. So I want to thank you for the infrastructure improvements you're going to do on all 4 corners of the project. You've also agreed to include public art in the project, and you've voluntarily offered an additional $100,000 for public infrastructure improvements in the district, or not in the district, in the area. And I just want to ask if you'd be willing to increase that amount, or increase that amount by an additional $150,000 to $250,000 for public infrastructure improvements in the area.
Who would like to speak for the applicant on that? Mr. Lawler, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Council and Mayor. It's nice to be with you this afternoon. And to answer the question directly, yes, we're agreeable to an additional $150,000. And I'll keep it brief, but I don't, if it makes sense to make a few comments here, or.
Please feel free.
And I'll keep it very brief because Ryan's presentation was so comprehensive, and this is the last item before your summer break. So I just want to say, this has really been a 5-year process to get to this point. We began, working side by side with staff on a downtown South of Laurel plan. It really was a really comprehensive strategy that I think is going to yield great results for the city and the community, which is deliver a lot of housing, and really ultimately deliver a great new public space for the community, including an arena, hopefully for the Warriors, and to stay here permanently. So we're excited to be part of that process. And this is the first project to avail itself of this strategy that came before you, and then ultimately the California Coastal Commission, and for that approval. So it's really exciting to be here. And we also wanted to mention the Architecture Review Committee, which we think really our architects, our team really think made the project even better. And so we think overall that was a really excellent process, and we were happy to be part of it. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Let me see if council members, Mr. Newsom, were you finished with your question, sir? We'll move across here, council member.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Lawler and team and Lincoln team for your work on the project. I am also excited to see this come forward and provide more housing. And just want to acknowledge and appreciate, as my council colleague did, on the conditions of approval you have agreed to and provided for us in addition to what's required voluntarily. I do have a question for city staff. I wonder if you can speak to the infrastructure impact fee nexus study, where we're at, what are the next steps, and when will we see that come before council?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Curtis Buzard, Public Works Engineering. Sorry, I got a tickle in my throat. Anyways, the Nexus study is under contract. In about 3 months, it should be completed in front of the council.
That answers my question.
That answer your question?
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Buzard.
that's it. Thank you. Those are my questions and comments for now.
Very
Thank
good.
you, Mayor.
Councilmember O'Hara.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ryan, for the presentation and for the good work. I did have a question, and maybe this is part of the agenda packet and I missed it. The emphasis on where the affordable housing is going to be developed at 407 Pacific, that project has already been through the Planning Commission. Okay. What we're doing today is not also approving that project. That's a question.
My understanding is that project's already been approved, and basically what you guys are considering today is that combination option that's listed as one of the options for providing affordable housing for projects in the South Aurora area. And that 407 project is basically providing and meeting the requirements for this 201 Street in terms of providing the affordable housing requirements for that. So there's an agreement between these two projects to provide that. Normally it's number of units, but in this case it's total square footage.
Got it. And that is the current Neptune Apartments parcel?
I believe that's the name of
Okay.
what's there currently.
And this is purely observational, but I do feel like I need to comment on this. So we are in the process, a few of us, Council Member Newsom, Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson, and myself, working really closely with planning staff on a process around how do we describe in objective terms the look and feel of how we want buildings to be designed and developed in town. And I will say, I feel like there's a strong juxtaposition of the really good design with the project that we are considering and the example that you put up with 407 Pacific. I had an opportunity with Councilmember Newsom to walk around yesterday and look at buildings that have been erected on Pacific and Front Street. And that 407 Pacific building feels I'm having a reaction to that, much like I have had a reaction to some of the buildings that are on Pacific that just feel like a monolith and should be designed better, like period. And so I guess I understand that this is all kind of this process that we need to take in order to move forward with approval of this project. However, I want to understand if there's an opportunity to talk about the design of the 407 project and when that should happen. And maybe that train has already left the station. But what I learned yesterday in this conversation was so valuable to me that there's minor tweaks that can happen with windows and how the depth of windows, the depth of recesses at the ground floor, how the commercials, first floor interacts with the residential floors above that I feel like are solvable. And I don't want to approve any more projects without at least having this conversation. So I don't like the juxtaposition of how well the 201 project looks and feels and then what was put up with regard to 407. I mean, why are we building our affordable housing projects to look like that? That bothers me a lot. And so I think that there's probably almost nothing we can do, but I would like to engage with the developers now, maybe completely out of order, maybe in no way are we, are they legally required to do any of this? But I want to have this conversation because I really don't like how I feel looking at these two projects, especially given the downtown density, does, and, Mr. Lawler, I think accurately represented, the Architectural Review Committee is doing really good work. Let's make sure that all of our projects look like this. And I think that it's clear that the affordable housing project of 407, is not going to look and feel the same way as the 201. Thank you.
Thank you. Further initial questions, comments? This would be the opportunity for anyone who is with us today to make comment on this project. In the event that we have folks in person and online, I'll toggle back and forth. Ms. Greenside, good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I'm going to restrict my time to the public trees that are on Laurel Street and Pacific Avenue. I'd like to emphasize these are public heritage trees, and I assume you have all visited the site and looked at them and admired them. And I have a sinking feeling that they are going to be sacrificed, not the ones that are in poor health, not the straggly ones, the ones on Laurel Street, the Chinese flame trees, and the magnolias on Pacific Avenue. They are located almost against the roadway. The sidewalk on Pacific Avenue, I paced it out, it's 10 to 12 feet wide. And yet they're going to be sacrificed, the agenda report says, to widen the sidewalk. What, into the road? It did not make sense. And I stood there looking at them and thought, of all the trees I've tried to urge the hearing body to protect, these look about the easiest to protect. But they don't even rate a mention in the agenda report, as the arborist report was not included in the agenda report. There's just 16 heritage trees to go. I'm almost, surprising for me, at a loss of words that this could happen. I just urge you to not allow this to go ahead with the removal of just those trees I mentioned. The heritage trees on Pacific, the magnolias, which are absolutely beautiful trees, or one has raised a slab of the sidewalk, easy to deal with. And then the Chinese flame trees, which are beautiful trees on Laurel Street. What more can I say to urge you to not go ahead and allow those trees, public heritage trees, to be taken down when this project on its private property could be developed without sacrificing them. I hope you will take some action. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone online with their hand raised? Okay. And Mr. Ewing, good afternoon again.
Yeah, hello, my name is James Ewing Whitman. I'm commenting on the 8-story building that's going to be built where the Ace Hardware is. You know, it's not like it's any real surprise. I've only been in a couple of those buildings, and I am questioning the ones that are downtown, the amount of residents, how full they are. I know there's been some shenanigans at the 314 Jesse Street. I won't expand any more into that. Sure wish more of the public were at these meetings. Maybe a lot of other things would happen. You know, I'm just kind of wondering what has caused this big change in people. You know, didn't Rudolph Joseph Lorenzo Steiner from 1852 to 1925 say the soul of man would be taken away by medicine and vaccines? I think I really see that, you know, with the Agenda 21 stuff that came in through the SEEDS project in this county in 1993 and was adopted into protocol, I think there's some validity to some community members saying you guys are just kind of reading scripts. So something that I really hope doesn't happen in this nation and throughout the whole planet is this tokenization of assets. And once again, do you really own your car? Do you really own your home? I think if you really look into that, you do not. It's just like when you have a child and you have a birth certificate, the government actually owns your child. How did we allow these things to happen? So I'm going to mention Robert Shaw, I think in 2012, did a very interesting 12-minute presentation about Agenda 21 in this county. And he talked about indemnifications from liability for design flaws or changes, you know, and I have no problem mentioning the 314 Jesse Street because I just learned some stuff a few days ago that really made my jaw drop. So, I mean, I don't know. I was very fortunate. I grew up in Palo Alto. I spent most of my professional career since I moved here in 1994, 95, commuting to Palo Alto or Redwood City. You know what my favorite thing about working in Palo Alto was? Leaving. Because I got to race home through the mountains. It's amazing how that city has changed. And you know, it's kind of amazing how this city has changed. Once again, it just would be fascinating if more of the public were here asking questions about jurisprudence. I could have been way more direct about some stuff, but what's the point? I was direct enough. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Last call. Back before the body, pleasure of the body. Councilmember Newsom.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve the staff recommendation, including the 3 conditions that were added as part of staff's presentation, and with the addition of the extra $150,000 voluntary contribution committed to by the applicant for a total of $250,000 towards public infrastructure improvements in the area, as noted in condition number 39.
There's a motion.
I'll second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. Mr. Newsom, you may open on your motion.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to thank the applicant for being here today and for all those who spoke. This project, I think, is an example of the efficacy of the downtown density bonus that this body approved about a year ago around this time, providing incentives to cap buildings at 85 feet or lower and at least 20% of all units being built being affordable, which for this project, if you add in the 2 projects, will be actually 42% of the number of units that are built for this project will be affordable. So very happy to support this agenda item. I do want to follow up on a comment that we received on the trees in the Laurel section and ask if staff can explore preserving those trees as the project moves to the next stage.
Mr. Bain? Mr. Butler? Good afternoon again.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm looking at the civil drawings right now that we have a change to the roadway design out there to facilitate additional space for bicycle lanes and shifting curb locations. And looking at that, the existing street trees are within the new bike lane on Laurel Street, so that area is shifting down. Happy to take a look at it. What I'm looking at here in the plans, those trees cannot be preserved because they are in the middle of the bike lane, the new bike lane on Laurel Street.
Madam Vice Mayor.
Mr. Butler, are the bike lanes part of this specific project or part of a greater project in the downtown area?
Thanks for asking that question. It is part of this project. So this project will be making frontage improvements, and that includes curb gutter sidewalk and restriping and so forth on all 4 frontages, Pacific, Laurel, Front, and Spruce.
Will all those trees be removed that Ms. Greenside was referring to?
I'd have to look. I was just focusing on the ones on Laurel because in quickly looking, those I saw what appeared to be one, perhaps two heritage-sized trees there. The ones on Pacific did not appear to be heritage trees. In the minimal amount of time that I've had between that comment and now, I haven't had a chance to look at all those frontages. I just looked at those. But to the council member's point and to your what I think your desire is, Vice Mayor, happy to look at those, but with the downtown plan, there are some very substantial changes to how the sidewalk and the bike lanes are interacting, and really we're trying to improve the pedestrian and bicycle experience. And given that those right-of-way dimensions are shifting, they may conflict in various instances. They may conflict with the new transportation improvements for bikes and peds.
Okay, I appreciate that. I don't know if additional council direction or amendment to the motion needs to be made, but I would like for staff to look at those specific trees and see what's possible. I hate that we're having to pit improved pedestrian and bicycle amenities with the beautiful trees downtown. So whatever we can do to preserve those trees in that corner. Again, I don't know if we need a amended motion or if this is enough of a direction.
I think that's enough of a direction. And we can coordinate with Public Works as they review the final improvement plans and such.
Thank you.
Councilmember Triguero.
Just a quick question, Director Butler, to Ms. Greensight's other question. Are arborist reports usually included in staff in items like this? It would have been helpful if we had the arborist report, I think, just considering this.
I just looked, it is posted on our website on the project page.
The project page.
Yes, and presumably it was not posted as part of the packet, is that correct?
Well, it was attached to the Planning Commission staff report. And so then the Planning Commission staff report and all attachments to that were part of the council report as well. So
okay, so it is embedded.
To that, so it was included, yes.
Excellent, okay, thank you.
Councilmember O'Hara.
Thank you. I'm having kind of a visceral reaction to this conversation about bike lane versus tree. I'm not sure that should not be sitting in the hands of council rather than just an understood consideration as part of this project. We've had many, many conversations about the preservation of heritage trees as they conflict with number of units, density of the building, impacts to construction. This sounds very much like this is impacts to our own plans with how people move around this community. I am not satisfied with the exchange that just by virtue of the right-of-way being changed, these trees cannot be preserved. That seems very contrary to and while it is completely flawed, our heritage tree ordinance. So I'm actually not willing to just, I would appreciate having a direct motion on this. And I'm not sure I'm actually even comfortable approving the heritage tree permit removal unless we have a lot of clarity about what our opportunities are for preserving these trees. I don't want it to be a promise. I want this to be very clear that this council wants to understand the trade-offs between preserving the plan for enhanced bicycle infrastructure and preserving these trees, and particularly the Chinese flame trees and the magnolias. It is not very often that Ms. Greenside limits her comments to just a few trees. I think we should take this very seriously. And if this is not impacting how this building is designed, I want to have a lot of clarity about what these trade-offs are. And I don't think I'm comfortable moving forward unless we're giving direction on this.
Mr. Butler.
I'd ask if we could pull up the plans for sheet okay, I had the civil plans up. Would you rather have the civil plans?
Yeah, the civil plans.
So C21.
I was just gonna mention one thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is that there is underground parking so there's gonna be quite a bit of excavation as part of this project
Just hold
as
for a
well.
second, Mr.
Oh,
Mayor.
sorry.
We're trying to do too many things here at once. Let's get what you want on the screen.
There we go. So I'll be clear about this. In looking at this over the last 2 minutes, it does not appear that the trees that are out there are able to be preserved with the public improvements that were approved by the council as part of the downtown plan expansion. And so those right-of-way cross-sections were approved for the facilitation of the bicycle and pedestrian improvements. And so as those things shift, we also need to sometimes remove trees. I'll turn it over to Curtis, our Public Works representative, as their team reviews this information. And then I'd also, if we have an opportunity, I think it would be good to look at some of those trees because there are some nice trees out there and there are some trees that I think, if we're trading off, if you're even considering trading off, taking a look at some of those trees, we would probably want to prioritize pedestrian improvements on Pacific Avenue and planting new trees that can grow in a very short period of time into some of those same specimens that are out there now.
So Public Works did look at, we'll start with Laurel Street. We looked at that frontage and we looked at the heritage trees. With the new downtown plan expansion design, we cannot save those trees. There'll be a wider sidewalk, a buffer, an elevated bike lane. That's the same elevation as the sidewalk. Then some trees, new trees, another buffer than the drive lane. So those trees, unless you go away from the downtown plan expansion, they're not going to be able to make it. I don't believe Civic will work either with the new design and the sidewalk widths and everything. We can look at it, but you got to understand, we don't want to build a new sidewalk and have a tree right in the middle of the sidewalk. That's not good for circulation. So we can revisit it, but I just don't think it would work personally.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Mayor? It sounds very much like that is actually a downtown plan expansion consideration and not necessarily this development is driving this. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, they're designing per that plan and for the cross sections.
Okay. So I'm just trying to make sure I understand. The building is designing to be in compliance with the downtown plan expansion by virtue of that with requirements for new pedestrian, accommodating new pedestrian movement, bike lanes, et cetera, this particular building on this particular corner to meet the constraints, requirements, and guidelines of the downtown plan expansion needs to remove those trees in order to move forward.
Correct.
I would appreciate, the arborist report, it was, I had an opportunity to look at it. It was posted as part of the Planning Commission report. This conversation, having this live, is really challenging, right? Because we're looking at a little teeny weeny little site plan. We're having a little bit of competing information coming back to us with regard to questions. The overarching direction that the city wants to take with the downtown expansion. When we move in that direction, I can personally say I'm not contemplating the decision that I made a year ago in relation to each individual tree that's on each individual corner. So as we move forward with downtown plan expansion projects, we need that context. We absolutely need that context. And I think that I'm not exactly sure how to thread this needle, but I do think I personally would benefit from that analysis. I don't think this is a very complicated thing to produce, but I would very much benefit from having this analysis to feel comfortable with removing those trees. And again, I'm not sure where we're at in terms of project approval, or, if there was a motion that basically said, prior to issuance of the heritage tree removal permit, City Council be provided with an analysis of the limitations and opportunities associated with preserving the Chinese flame and the magnolia trees on the Pacific and Laurel corner, I think would be helpful.
When you say corner, specifically that one corner or the whole frontages? I'm talking frontages.
I think, and I'd hate to call Ms. Greenside back up, but what I think I heard her say, and I'm looking at the site plan, are the Chinese flames. They're T62 and T63, and T61 and T60. So it's 4 trees.
We can look at it. It could change the design. But we also have to check with fire, because fire typically does not want trees on corners on high-rise buildings to fight a fire.
I mean, that's great to know. And all of that information would help at least me, I'm not going to speak for anybody else on council, feel more comfortable with these decisions that we're making. And I don't like doing this on the fly during, these deliberations. It's very challenging.
I understand that, but those corners are the throat to get on these protective bike lanes and walkways with ADA ramps and entries for the bike lanes. Those can be in conflict. We can't adjust those too much without causing a hazard for the public. So my personal opinion is I just don't, I think it would be really, really challenging to try and save those trees. But we can look at it.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? We have a motion, we have a second. All debate having ceased, Councilmember O'Hara.
Would you please share your understanding of the additional direction that the motion maker and the second provide with regard to the trees, so the rest of us can kind of understand what the intention of staff is around that additional language?
I would say that we look at the location of the heritage trees in particular, but any of the trees in the public right of way, with respect to the location of those public improvements, and see if there are any modifications to the public improvements that can accommodate those trees. There are clearly some that do not appear they can be accommodated. Bonnie, if you'd like to belabor the point, we have that area, the section zoomed in, and we can share that information. But for purposes of furthering the conversation, if you want to proceed, then we can just convey to our public works counterparts that as part of those improvements, we can look to see if any of those trees, any of the improvements can be modified in a manner that would preserve those trees. But as, again, in our quick review right here, it doesn't appear that those, for example, they are right in the middle of a new bike lane, for example. And with the tight right-of-ways that we have on Laurel Street, for example, I don't see the Laurel Street trees, for example, as any way. Not having looked at all the trees around all the perimeter, we're happy to do that, but I know the heritage tree on Laurel was an example, and I want to set expectations. I want to set clear expectations around that.
Mayor, I'd like to split the question, if that's okay.
Say it again.
I'd like to split the question.
Certainly.
I'd like to just carve out the approval of the heritage tree removal permit.
Okay, so I understand your request. Let's take a look at this and see if we can do that. The motion and the second are for the recommendation on 33.1, which adopts the resolution on the statutory exemption, approves the non-residential demolition permit, coastal permit, design permit, administrative use permit, heritage tree removal, downtown density bonus, and request based on findings in the draft resolution and conditions of approval. That is the motion, as I understand it. There was what I understand to be essentially a point of personal privilege to say, would the folks be willing to look at some things relative to trees, but that is not part of the motion. The additional part is the 100 goes to 250. That was accepted, and that is in the main motion. That is not an amendment to any other activity. That is part of the main motion. So let me see what it is you would like to separate out.
Just simply the heritage tree removal permit in the long list.
Let me explore that for a second. Any question which can be divided shall be divided upon a request by a member. Now I'm going to go to the question of, can this question be divided?
It's an interesting question, and when I'm looking at on the fly, as I'm looking at this, there's a resolution that's been prepared by staff that my understanding is does all of those things mentioned in the motion. So I don't know how you can approve the resolution and not also approve the heritage tree permit without really getting into the weeds of it and doing some significant revisions to the resolution.
I want to make sure, your advice to the presiding officer is the question's not divisible.
I think that's correct, yes.
Okay. Now, if you wish to make an additional motion, it is your privilege to do so.
I think I'm okay, thank you. Thank you, no.
Oh, okay, all right. Is there further question, debate, or discussion? And for those who may be watching, the reason Councilmember Bruner is not here is that she has a disclosed conflict. So we will have 6 folks voting on this. Clerk will call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Triguero.
Aye.
Newsom.
Aye.
Boulder. Aye. O'Hara.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson.
Aye.
And Mayor Keeley.
Aye. Motion passes and so ordered. Thank you all very much for your good work. I want to add that this is the first big play downtown in our expansion area. And I want to thank Mr. Butler, our city attorney, and others, including Mr. Lawler and others who have worked very hard on our downtown expansion plan. You know, when this council, before I was here 4 years ago, was looking at buildings downtown, there were potentially could have been 15, 17, or 20 stories. What this council has done and what the Coastal Commission approved on our downtown expansion plan instead is no building taller than the Palomar. No building taller than the Palomar. And people may still take issue with how tall this is or that is, but I think it's important to understand context here. And our planning department and the development community have found common ground, how to keep the height of these buildings no taller than the Palomar and still have a viable business opportunity here. So thank you to the planning department. Thank you to the development community that is playing by those rules and still getting very much needed housing development. And my very last comment is, nobody lives in units. People live in housing. We're approving housing. It's got a number of units in it, but people don't live in units. They live in housing. And so I think it's another step in the direction of providing housing. And when we think about what we did a couple of weeks ago on the local preference ordinance, we are feathering these together for what the community wants. Building housing for people who are here now, building most of it affordable, so we can reduce overcrowding, create other opportunities for affordability. So thank you all very much on that. Madam City Clerk, do we have further business to come before the body?
Not for me, no.
Madam City Attorney, further business?
No.
With great reluctance, Councilmember Renee Golder moves that we would adjourn, and Councilmember Triguero is thinking, maybe that makes sense. So she's finally relented and said she'll second it. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries and so ordered. We stand adjourned.